Chapter 898. Things were no longer a matter of Yang Chen alone, although the other party indicated that Yang Chen should go alone. Involving the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, there would inevitably be a series of reactions. Therefore, it was normal for the head of the palace to make the decision. For the guy who dared to hit on his fiancée, Yang Chen was not very polite. The means that he used to deal with Liang Xiaoming in the past, without saying a word, he used it on Zhu Shiyuan. Obviously, Zhu Shiyuan's cultivation base was high, so he endured for a long time, at least much later than the time when Liang Xiaoming begged for mercy. But the ending was no different. In the end, he begged Yang Chen to stop. What's going on with this jade slip? Yang Chen asked the same question again. But this time, Zhu Shiyuan no longer dared to hide it, and he wished he could explain the whole story immediately. In a hurry, he even stuttered a few times and was taught a lesson by Yang Chen, which made the complete cause and effect clear. Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue were really plotted against, and the one who did it was Zhu Shiyuan's master. However, this master of the Deshang stage who suddenly emerged, even Zhu Shiyuan himself, did not know the true identity. In this regard, Hu Qianyi was very secretive, and even Zhu Shiyuan was concealed. Strictly speaking, it could not be completely regarded as a plot. Hu Qianyi was a master of the Deshang stage. He secretly made a move, only to capture the two women alive, but he saved the lives of the two women. Otherwise, with Shi Shanshan's strong character, if she was defeated, she might commit suicide on the spot. However, the strength of Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue was still beyond the expectations of Hu Qianyi. He was unprepared, but the two women were seriously injured before they were captured. They were taken by Hu Qianyi, but the specific hiding place was still unknown. Hu Qianyi was already waiting at the place indicated on the jade slip. Once Yang Chen did not go, he would leave with the two women immediately. Of course, Zhu Shiyuan did not hide the reason, nor did he dare to hide it. About Gao Jing, Zhu Shiyuan almost poured out the beans in a bamboo tube. Yang Chen gave him a few tricks. As long as he saw Yang Chen's face, his body would involuntarily tremble, as if it had become an instinct. Yang Chen didn't expect that the alchemist who he didn't care about and let go when he collected the medicine nourishing gourd turned out to have such a trick. And what made him most dumbfounded was that the other party thought that he could become a fifth-grade alchemist because of the medicine nourishing gourd. The medicine nourishing gourd certainly gave Yang Chen some inspiration, but Yang Chen was already a sixth-grade alchemist master in his previous life. In this life, it's just that his skills are insufficient, but the experience and knowledge of alchemy are all there, and the techniques are also familiar, plus the Supreme Lord Pill scripture. It can almost be said that it has nothing to do with the medicine nourishing gourd. But the other party obviously didn't think so, and the high success rate of alchemy on the medicine nourishing gourd was also an indisputable fact. It was reasonable to have such doubts. Yang Chen didn't care about what other people guessed. He cared about the safety of the two women. The two women were seriously injured, which surprised Yang Chen and the head of the palace, especially Yang Chen. Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue did not have this tribulation in the memory of their previous lives. In this life, it was completely because of him that they were set up like this, and even attracted the masters of the Deshang stage to come out. Zhu Shiyuan also explained very thoroughly that the injuries of the two women were very serious. The healing medicinal pills that he refined himself could only alleviate the pain for a while, but could not cure it. If the time was delayed for too long, the lives of the two women may not be guaranteed. Now that he finally got the exact news from Zhu Shiyuan's mouth, the head of the palace did not dare to neglect and immediately sent a letter to the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect. If they could not save them in time, at least it was obvious that the two sect knew about this matter. As for Yang Chen, he had already begun to prepare to set off to save them. The two women were seriously injured, and there was no good healing medicine. If he was late, he was afraid that he would regret it for life. Fortunately, when Yang Chen made alchemy for the Taishaman last time, he had already refined a few more fifth-grade Lingji mushroom jade pills. As long as they did not die, they could always be pulled back from the gates of hell. Zhu Shiyuan's Qinquan bag was held in Yang Chen's hand, and he looked at the things inside one by one. It had to be said that Zhu Shiyuan, this guy, was also very rich. Many medicinal materials were thousands of years old, and there were many materials for refining. It was said that this guy, as a third-grade alchemist master, was not a lack of money, but unfortunately he was born with a metal and fire dual attribute. For a while, he couldn't find a suitable dual attribute magic weapon, so there was no life source magic weapon so far. The best thing in the Qinquan bag was an alchemy furnace. At first glance, it was refined by a master and it has been used for many years. The medicine qi has been saturated inside and outside. However, this alchemy furnace gave Yang Chun a familiar feeling. Although the refining technique looked ordinary, the traces left by the refiner still remained on it. Who refined this alchemy furnace? Yang Chun asked Zhu Shiyuan directly while holding the alchemy furnace. This is what the master helped me refine. Zhu Shiyuan replied quickly. Anyway, even he didn't know the true origin of his master, so it was okay to tell Yang Chun. Zhu Shiyuan didn't expect it at all. Just this sentence made Yang Chun guess Hu Qian's identity 8 or 9 out of 10. The traces of the refiner's spiritual awareness left on the alchemy furnace have not completely dissipated. It was no wonder that the alchemy furnace was not Zhu Shiyuan's life source magic weapon, and he did not intend to treat this alchemy furnace as an important magic weapon. Therefore, even the most basic work of tempering the alchemy furnace for a long time was not done. It was only used for alchemy. Instead, the imprint of the refiner has been left on it. If it was replaced by someone else who left the residual imprint of their spiritual awareness, Yang Chun would not necessarily be able to know the identity of the other party. But the person who refined it was Hu Qian of Taishimen. The last time Yang Chun refined the 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill for Taishimen, he once treated 3 Deshang stage masters face to face. Not only did he take the pulse, but also with their permission, he used his spiritual awareness to explore the injuries of the whole body. It was precisely because of this that Yang Chun could still recognize the spiritual awareness of the 3 people. The residual imprint of the spiritual awareness on this alchemy furnace was clearly left by Hu Qian. The master of the Deshang stage, his identity was hidden. He dared to deal with the disciples of the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island. Plus this residual spiritual awareness imprint, Yang Chun could already be sure that the mysterious master, the master of the Deshang stage, was Hu Qian. This matter should not be delayed. This disciple has to leave immediately. I also asked the palace master to understand. Yang Chun had a plan in his heart and asked the head of the palace to leave. Be careful. The head of the palace couldn't say anything more. He just said, let your master ancestor and hall master go together. Take care of each other on the road. Chapter 899. Wang Yong and Gue Shanyu went together. Yang Chun certainly did not object. It was better to deal with 2 more masters of the Deshang stage than to deal with it alone. However, Hu Qian could also think of this, so he would not be unprepared. Yang Chun still retained a trace of doubt about whether the 2 could help at a critical moment. The shuttle flew like the wind and flew towards the place designated by Hu Qian. The other party did not leave much time for Yang Chun, only 10 days. In these 10 days, even with the speed of the shuttle, it would take days and nights to arrive. Hu Qian understood this, so he could boldly inform Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace. 10 days was not enough for Chunyang Palace to inform the Green Jade, Immortal Island, and Blue Cloud sect, and it was not enough for the masters over there to be dispatched. As for Chunyang Palace, there were a total of 2 masters of the Deshang stage. Even if they came together, Hu Qian had a way to deal with them. Fortunately, after Yang Chen's cultivation base rose sharply, the speed of the shuttle also improved by a level. Otherwise, it would be too late to catch Zhu Shiyuan and interrogate him. Now that he was rushing over day and night, the time was almost just right. Of course, Yang Chun would not be idle on the road. He had to prepare some things, some good things that would make Hu Qian want to die. On the shuttle, Yang Chun started his old job, alchemy. But this time it was not a medicinal pill for saving people, nor was it a medicinal pill for breakthrough, but a poison. Generally speaking, alchemists would not easily touch poisons, but it did not mean that alchemists could not refine poisons. On the contrary, the more skilled an alchemist was, the more powerful they would be in refining poisons. In the mortal world, this kind of thing was rare, but in the spiritual world and the immortal world, many alchemists' way of self-protection was to use poison. What Yangchen was refining now was a kind of poison that could make the masters of the human immortal level obediently follow the Tao. Although it was called poison, it was more appropriate to describe it as a knockout drug or a medicine that could disperse one's cultivation. Although killing Hu Qianyi would vent his anger, it would inevitably hurt Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue. For the safety of the two girls, he could only use this relatively safe method. This kind of medicine, called pulse calming powder, was actually used to save people in the beginning. Those masters who have been possessed by the devil during cultivation, after taking the pulse calming powdered pill, will quietly and painlessly disperse their cultivation, which is a good medicine to treat this dangerous situation. But if it was used elsewhere, it would be a deadly poison. The reason why he used this pulse calming powder pill was because he fancied the process of it dispersing without feeling. Moreover, this kind of cultivation dispersing pill that was suitable for human immortals was very effective. In just 10 breaths of time, it could complete the process of dispersing the cultivation dispersing pill silently, and the other party would not feel anything. Of course, the key was that Yangchen's collection plus the 10,000 years old elixirs in the medicine garden was just enough to refine 3 or 4 portions of pulse calming powder medicinal pill. No more. It had such an effect on human immortals. For a mere Deshang stage master, the medicinal effect would only spread faster. It shouldn't be a big problem to deal with Hu Qianyi. The only thing to pay attention to was that he couldn't let him discover the process of administering the medicine. He could only suffer the pulse calming powdered pill himself. However, in 10 days, refining the pulse calming powdered pill was no problem. 4 or 5 days would be enough, but it was not enough time to refine the antidote. This was a problem. If Yangchen couldn't refine the antidote, then he would have to disperse his cultivation. After dispersing his cultivation, Yangchen would not be able to refine the antidote, and other people would not have the ability to refine the antidote. It seemed that this result had become an endless loop. Although the blue jade vine had the effect of detoxification, Yangchen has never heard that the blue jade vine could solve the medicinal properties of this pulse calming powdered pill. But there was no better way at the moment. He could only treat a dead horse as a living horse and try it first. Fortunately, the body of the blue jade vine in the medicine garden was the tool spirit of Bai, and Yangchen could communicate with a Bai at any time to understand. When refining the pulse calming powdered pill, Yangchen was very careful, letting the master ancestor and the old tree demon avoid far away. The profound spirit furnace was always closed until the furnace was about to be opened. He used the peak fire control technique to wrap the pulse calming powdered pill with the flame. After wrapping it directly into several layers of wax pills, he did not even dare to use the medicine nourishing gourd and stored it directly in a sealed jade bottle. When testing the medicine, he was more cautious. He let a Zhu and a Bai transplant all the medicinal materials in the medicine garden into the second layer and closed the door tightly. Only a Bai's body was left in the first layer, and Yangchen also left the medicine garden. He controlled a Bai and let her burst the wax pill left in the first layer of the medicine garden. In an instant, an invisible medicine qi filled the first layer of space of the medicine garden. The blue jade vine was exposed to the influence of the medicine qi of the pulse calming powdered pill, and after a while, it seemed a little sluggish. When people in the spiritual world used the pulse calming powdered pill, they closed themselves and then used it like this. And there must be a helper, and the antidote must be prepared in advance. After the patient disperses, it will take at least a day and a night, or after burning with a high-grade flame. The helper can hold the antidote in his mouth, approach the patient, and help the patient recover the meridians as quickly as possible. Because there is no turbulent spiritual power interference, it will be relatively simple. After everything is straightened out, let the patient take the antidote. Even if there is an antidote, It will take at least half a month or so for patients who use the pulse-calming powdered pill to return to normal. Yang Chun now has Wang Yong and the old tree demon with him. He is not afraid of this recovery time, but worried that there is no antidote. The wilting of the blue jade vine was almost visible to the naked eye. Despite being outside the medicine garden, Yang Chun clearly noticed that the vines of the blue jade vine were getting more and more withered, and all the thick vines became soft, no longer as strong as before. Yang Chun's heart sank. It seemed that this method still didn't work. But he still didn't give up. His spiritual awareness penetrated into the medicine garden and asked Abai how she felt now. What a strong medicinal property. Abai's thoughts were directly transmitted to Yang Chun's mind, and it seemed that even her consciousness was a little sluggish. However, it can barely be solved, but it will take a long time. At this time, the medicinal property of the pulse-calming powdered pill has maintained a balance with the detoxification ability of the blue jade vine. The blue jade vine no longer has any changes, but there is no way to recover immediately. It must be known that the medicinal pills from Yang Chun's profound spirit furnace were at least the second grade. The second grade pulse-calming powdered pill was spread throughout the entire space of the first layer of the medicine garden, and even the blue jade vine couldn't remove it in a short time. The pulse-calming powdered pill couldn't be used, and Yang Chun could only use the bloody river to fight the enemy. It's a pity that the immortal beheading blade would be destroyed at the end of the tempering. As if aware of the anxiety in Yang Chun's heart, Abai suddenly transmitted a thought. Master, if you want to quickly remove this medicinal property, there's another way. It depends on whether Master is willing or not. What is the way? Yang Chun was shocked. Abai actually had a way. What did he have to give up? Blood demon vine. Are you willing? Abai's thoughts were accurately passed to Yang Chun's mind. Chapter 900. Blood phantom vine. Yang Chun was stunned. He didn't know what Abai's intention was to talk about the blood phantom vine. What did it mean to give up? Give up the blood phantom vine? The current blood phantom vine was taken by Yang Chun from Hua Wanting, an elder Hua's body, and carefully cultivated it. He didn't know how many Deshang stage master's blood was used to irrigate it, and he didn't know how many Deshang stage master's corpses were used as flower fertilizer. It was only a little bit from the weak seedling after the main root was cut off to the present. Compared with the time when it was originally taken from Elder Hua, the current blood phantom vine was only stronger. If it wasn't for the relatively slow speed of the blood phantom vine, it couldn't keep up with most opponents' movements. Otherwise, this unrefined blood phantom vine alone was an extremely powerful weapon. At this time, Bai asked Yang Chun if he was willing to give up the blood phantom vine, but for Yang Chun, it was not a problem. Not to mention that Yang Chun already has the blood phantom vine flying sword. Even without it, compared with the safety of the two women's lives, not to mention giving up a blood phantom vine. Even if he was asked to give up the spirit medicine and the entire medicine garden, he would not frown and blink his eyes. Naturally, Yang Chun directly gave Bai a definite answer. Can the blood phantom vine solve the poison of the pulse-calming powder medicinal pill? Please forgive this servant's presumptuous. With Yang Chun's approval, Abai's thoughts seemed to bring a hint of surprise. She hurriedly apologized, and then she began to do something. After a while, Abai asked, Master, please move the blood phantom vine to this servant's side. Yang Chun's spiritual awareness firmly monitored the changes in the medicine garden. As soon as Abai requested, Yang Chun immediately ordered a Zhu in the second layer of the medicine garden to transplant the blood phantom vine out. Fortunately, both women were tool spirits, and they were familiar with doing this kind of thing. Almost as soon as Yang Chun's request was issued, the blood phantom vine had already appeared next to the blue jade vine. As soon as the blood phantom vine appeared, under the medicinal chi of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill, it began to wither. After a while, it became wilted, and the rattans softly crawled on the ground. The listless appearance was completely different from the appearance planted on the flesh and blood of countless masters of the Deshang stage. Next, Yang Chun's spiritual sense saw that the jasper vine's rattan began to move slowly. Although it was moving very slowly. It was almost moving bit by bit. Finally, the two vines came into contact. As soon as he touched the rattan of the blood phantom vine, the blue jade vine seemed to have a little spirit. Like a predatory, poisonous snake, he entangled the blood phantom vine that he touched. Under the exploration of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, the blue jade vine seemed to suddenly grow spikes, piercing into the blood phantom vine and madly sucking the juice essence of the blood phantom vine. Just a little bit, the spirit of the blue jade vine became more and more exuberant, and more vines came into contact with the blood phantom vine. Then, the whole process became faster and faster. It was strange to say that the blood phantom vine that originally sucked human blood, when its own juice was absorbed by the blue jade vine, there was no sign of resistance. It laid softly on the ground and let the blue jade vine absorb it. Just after half an incense stick of time, the original huge blood phantom vine was wrapped by the rattan of the blue jade vine, and there was no trace of the appearance of the blood phantom vine. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness keenly discovered that after the blue jade vine absorbed the juice of the blood phantom vine, it became more and more energetic. It seemed that the medicinal qi of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill scattered in the air had no effect on her. All the branches seemed to be alive, and the leaves also raised their heads, no longer looking listless. In this regard, Yang Chen was puzzled. He really couldn't understand how the blue jade vine, which could solve many poisons, could absorb a completely different kind of blood phantom vine that was still poisonous. However, among the monster race, many times they relied on devouring other monster race to enhance their own strength. At this point, the blue jade vine did not seem strange at all. Fundamentally speaking, a bai was originally a vine monster of a blue jade vine. When a bai absorbed the juice of the blood phantom vine, the rattan had completely returned to its original state, and it was no longer affected by the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill. But the absorption process was not over yet. All the rattans grew wildly and wrapped around the blood phantom vine. Looking at this posture, there was the intention of swallowing all the blood phantom vine. "Master, this slave wants to swallow this blood phantom vine. Please forgive me." Abai's thoughts passed over again, clearly expressing her wishes to Yang Chen. Since Yang Chen has already made the plan to give up the blood phantom vine, he naturally wouldn't care about this. Not to mention that Abai's current appearance seemed to really have the ability to deal with the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill. Giving Abai a thought to continue, Yang Chen has been monitoring the process of Abai swallowing the blood phantom vine. This process did not take too long. It only took 2 days, and Abai completely swallowed the whole blood phantom vine. After swallowing the complete blood phantom vine, the body of the blue jade vine had undergone earth-shaking changes. The originally emerald green jasper vine had now turned into a slightly brownish-black color that was a mixture of red and green. It looked like black jade. As soon as the swallowing was completed, Abai couldn't wait to move all the flower fertilizer that had been buried in the roots of the blood phantom vine to her own roots, and then the black and red branches flew all over the sky, like a huge monster with teeth and claws. After a while, all the rattans quietly retracted back to the place and became a quiet vine plant. Abai's figure also appeared. "Master, the medicinal properties have been completely absorbed." After appearing, Abai immediately reported to Yang Chen. Yang Chen was overjoyed. His figure appeared in the medicine garden in an instant. He felt it himself, and there was indeed no trace of pulse-calming powdered medicinal pills' medicinal qi. Then he nodded. "This little servant thanks Master for your help." When Abai saw Yang Chen appear, she bowed to Yang Chen and gave a big salute. In the past, the blood phantom vine was raised in the medicine garden. Even if Abai had the courage, she did not dare to take the initiative to merge and swallow it. Moreover, the blood phantom vine that was growing vigorously was not so easy to swallow. This time, she borrowed the medicinal power of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill to move the blood phantom vine away from the nourishing place and disperse its vitality. So she took the opportunity to succeed. With the permission of Yang Chen, Abai swallowed the blood phantom vine, and it could be said that her strength had increased greatly. In contrast, the medicine garden seemed to be more stable, At least Yang Chun has noticed that the second space has expanded a lot. Get up. Yang Chun waved his hand to let Abai get up. No matter how powerful Abai was, she couldn't leave the existence of the medicine garden now. Yang Chun was interested in what kind of ability Abai had after swallowing the blood phantom vine, and whether she could ignore the medicinal power of the pulse-calming powder medicinal pill. Chapter 901. The raw materials needed for the pulse-calming powder medicinal pill. Even Yang Chun didn't have too much. Only 3 portions were refined, and 1 portion had been used in the medicine garden, leaving 2 portions. In a recent experiment, the blue jade vine that swallowed the blood phantom vine had completely ignored the medicinal effect of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill. At least in a short period of 2 days, all the pulse-calming powder medicinal pill in the medicine garden was already more powerful than the authentic antidote. With this alone, Yang Chen already had 90% confidence in dealing with Uqiani this time. Now, Yang Chun still wanted to know what the blue jade vine had become. I just have the blood-sucking ability and toxicity of the blood phantom vine. Faced with Yang Chen's inquiry, Abai replied with a light smile. Unable to hide the joy on her face, I didn't have the power to protect myself before, but now I finally don't have to be afraid. It was an understatement, but Yang Chen knew that Abai's strength had been greatly improved. This could be seen from the expansion of the medicine garden space. According to Abai, Yang Chun abandoned the blood phantom vine. But in fact, he had gained a more powerful subordinate who was a combination of the blue jade vine and the blood phantom vine. And it was still a subordinate with intelligence, which was many times stronger than the original pure blood phantom vine. Not to mention anything else, even if the medicine garden bottle was thrown outside, ordinary people wouldn't be able to control it. Except for Yang Chun, no one could resist Abai's close attack at this moment. Seeing that it was not far ahead, there was another 4 or 5 hours to the place designated by Hu Qiani. Yang Chun didn't care about the changes in Abai anymore, but let Abai be prepared to remove the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill from his body at any time. After flying forward for a few hours, Yang Chun was completely close to the destination. Unsurprisingly, a formation had been set up in a radius of a few hundred meters around the destination. Hu Qiani was now standing in the center of the formation, but at the moment his appearance was not similar to Hu Qiani of the Taishaman. There were 2 women lying beside him. They were none other than Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue. The 2 women lay there quietly, without a trace of life. Only the slow rise and fall of their chests could tell that they were still alive. "You got guts." Seeing Yang Chen's shuttle from afar, Hu Qiani's voice directly passed through the shuttle to Yang Chen's ears. Being affectionate and righteous is really a good match for the 2 fairies. Enter the formation. At this moment, Hu Qiani's formation was carefully arranged by him. Even if it was a master of the Deshang stage, once he entered the formation, he would be at his mercy. Even if he couldn't kill a Deshang stage master for a while, it was easy to trap several Deshang stage masters at the same level as him for 2 hours. Chunyang Palace had a master of the Deshang stage, but so what? With Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan in his hands, even if there were 10,000 masters of the Deshang stage, it would be impossible to stop him from killing 2 seriously injured women who had no resistance in the formation. If he wanted to take the lives of the 2 women, he had to obediently follow his instructions. As long as he entered the formation and relied on the formation to support these 2 hours, it was enough for Hu Qiani to get the things in the hands of Yang Chun and then escape. At that time, he would rendezvous with his own apprentice and then turn him into a 5th-grade alchemist master. From then on, there would be no better alchemist master than Zhu Shuyuan in the mortal world. As for Yang Chun, as long as he handed over the gourd and the alchemy secrets, it didn't matter if he wanted to keep his life. Without the support of becoming a 5th-grade alchemist master, Yang Chun was just a junior in the Jidan stage and could not set off much waves. The purpose of this time was mainly to get Yang Chen's gourd and alchemy secrets. Everything else was trivial and not worth mentioning. Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan. If Yang Chun was obedient, then he would give them to him. Anyway, the 2 women who were seriously injured, there was no medicinal pill to bring them back to life. Sooner or later they would just die. It was a good calculation. So the first request of the meeting was to let Yang Chun enter the formation. As long as he entered the formation, even if Yang Chun brought all the masters of the Deshang stage in Chunyang Palace with him, it would be useless. After entering the formation, Yang Chun would be the meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Yang Chun did not hesitate at all. He directly put away the shuttle and strode into the formation. His master ancestor Wang Yong and the old tree demon did not appear, and this was not the time to appear. The formation arranged by Hu Qianyi. Yang Chun knew that as long as the eye of the formation was controlled, the people in the formation had almost no room for resistance. People with strong cultivation bases could rely on their own cultivation base to resist, and they could also rely on magic weapons to survive the attack of the formation, but if they wanted to catch up with the guy who controlled the eye of the formation and wanted to leave, it was impossible. Seeing that Yang Chun entered the formation, Hu Qianyi's heart was put down for a long time, and he was no longer worried about what tricks Yang Chun would play. Come here. Now Hu Qianyi could command Yang Chun and even decide the life and death of Yang Chun. Yang Chun walked toward the eye of the formation where Hu Qianyi was. However, when he was about 20 feet away, Hu Qianyi ordered Yang Chun to stop. Did you bring the things? Hu Qianyi stared at Yang Chun. His spiritual awareness was wide open. He observed the surroundings vigilantly and asked calmly. Yang Chun did not answer, but his hands flashed, and a gourd appeared in his left hand, and a few pieces of jade slips appeared in his right hand. As Yang Chun took out these things from the Chinquan bag, a silent medicine chi also spread quickly around with Yang Chun as the center. Go, take the things over and see if they are true or not. Hu Qianyi suddenly ordered. With Hu Qianyi's words, a figure suddenly appeared between Yang Chun and Hu Qianyi. It was Gao Jing. In the formation arranged by Hu Qianyi, Gao Jing did not dare to have any other thoughts. He walked to Yang Chun and smiled at Yang Chun. Grandmaster Yang, we meet again. It's you? Yang Chun said with hatred, staring at Gao Jing's eyes as if they were about to burst into fire. I should have killed you in the past. Who said it wasn't? Gao Jing smiled again, then reached out and snatched the medicine-nourishing gourd from Yang Chun's hand. After getting in his hand, he explored it with his spiritual awareness, and his face suddenly showed joy. Immediately afterward, Gao Jing grabbed the jade slip in Yang Chun's other hand. After a few explorations with his spiritual awareness, he determined that there were a lot of alchemy techniques and pill recipes recorded. After careful inspection of both things, Gao Jing turned his head and nodded at Hu Qianyi. Everything is real. Very good. Bring it over. Hu Qianyi's face also showed ecstasy. A fifth-grade alchemist master would be born from his hands. How could it not make people ecstatic? Gao Jing did not dare to neglect. He took the two things and turned to Hu Qianyi. However, just after taking a step, the wind behind his head was loud. Bang! Gao Jing's head exploded directly, like a smashed watermelon. Chapter 902. Gao Jing's body fell to the ground, revealing the figure of Yang Chun. Yang Chun's blood-stained fist has not been completely retracted, but he looked coldly at Hu Qianyi not far away. The distance of 20 feet may be a mote in the face of the full protection of a master of the Deshang stage, but for the pulse-calming powder medicinal pill, it was just a short spread distance. The first layer of the medicine garden had a radius of hundreds of acres, and the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill spread for less than the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, let alone a mere 20 feet. When the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill was released, the new blue jade vine stretched out a thin tentacle and stuck it on Yang Chun's body. Of course, the role was not to suck blood, but to help Yang Chun resist the medicinal chi of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill. Just when Gao Jing checked the authenticity of the thing, the pulse-calming powder medicinal pill had already spread around. Unconsciously, Gao Jing and Hu Qianyi both inhaled a lot of medicinal qi. For Gao Jing, this guy, Yang Chun, did not have the slightest kindness. The last time he collected the medicine-nourishing gourd, it was he who teamed up with a group of people to ask Gong Sunling to be a cauldron furnace and to kill Yang Chun. Yang Chun was just anxious about the medicine-nourishing gourd at the time and didn't lower himself to his level. He didn't expect that it would bring such harm to Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue. After smashing Gao Jing's head with a punch, Yang Chen's eyes also stared at Hu Qianyi. With the coldness in his eyes, even Hu Qianyi felt a chill all over his body. Without thinking about it, Hu Qianyi immediately launched the formation. He was in the eye of the formation, and this formation was launched according to his will. Although the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill was powerful, it only targeted spiritual power, but not spiritual awareness. Hu Qianyi launched the formation without the slightest obstacle. The overwhelming attacks converged on Yang Chen from all directions. Outside Yang Chen's body, suddenly a phantom of a big bell appeared, covering Yang Chen's whole body. On the periphery of the big bell, there seemed to be two dragon shadows flying up and down. When all the attacks encountered the two dragon images, they were like snow meeting the blazing sun, vanishing without a trace. This kind of strange scenery, how could Hu Qianyi not understand? This is a body protection magic weapon of Yang Chen. However, despite knowing it, Hu Qianyi had no way to deal with Yang Chen. He could only watch Yang Chen raise his hand to recall the gourd and the jade slip in Gao Jing's hand. Then, he calmly walked towards the eye of the formation step by step. Hu Qianyi did not expect that his formation, which could trap the masters of the Deshang stage, had no effect on Yang Chen. Alarmed, he was about to summon his natal magic weapon to deal a fatal blow to Yang Chen, but he was shocked to find that the spiritual power in his body had disappeared completely. Not to mention summoning his natal magic treasure, even opening the cosmos sack was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Seeing that Yang Chen was approaching step by step, and the array that he had set up in advance had no effect at all, Hu Qianyi could not help but panic. In his life, he did not know how many life and death tribulations he had experienced, but Hu Qianyi had never felt so flustered. In the past, even in the face of a great enemy, he had never lost his mind. This was one of the reasons why he could live to the present, and the enemy had already turned into bones. But he didn't know why. In the face of a junior in the Jidan stage who came step by step, Hu Qianyi did not seem to dare to face him. Perhaps Hu Qianyi used to face the enemy. He would move forward bravely, but this time, he used a conspiracy to deal with a younger generation junior, because of his guilty conscience. Yang Chen would never let him go. Hu Qianyi had this clear understanding. If it was him, he would not easily let go of any enemy who dared to treat him like this. At present, the formation was useless, and he had no spiritual power in his body. The only hope of survival was to control the two women, Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue, before Yang Chen came over. Now Hu Qianyi regretted it to the extreme. If he knew that such a situation would happen, how could he throw the two women so far away, when he had the strength of the Deshang stage? Not to mention putting the two unconscious women 10 feet away. Even if they were 10 times further away, he could still kill the two women in a flash. But now, he only had the heart, but not the power. The panic was only as sudden. Hu Qianyi had experienced countless life and death tribulations and immediately recovered his calmness. Without thinking about it, he rushed directly to Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue over there. As long as he could control any one of them, with his body tempered by the thunder tribulation and the Yin fire tribulation, he could kill the hostage in his hands at any time. At that time, even Yang Chen would have to obey him. At the moment when he flashed out, Hu Qianyi suddenly had a guilty conscience, and a crazy thought flashed in his mind. If Yang Chen did not care about the life and death of the two women and insisted on killing him, what should he do? He had the spiritual awareness of the Deshang stage, but he did not have the spiritual power of the Deshang stage. Wouldn't he die very ugly? Up to now, Hu Qianyi didn't understand how he was unknowingly hit by the trick, causing his spiritual power to be completely gone. But soon Hu Qianyi thought of the reason. The only thing that could make him so was some kind of unique drug. And Yang Chen happened to be the best alchemist master in the world. It was not surprising that he could do this. Before this, Hu Qianyi thought of dealing with the two masters of the Deshang stage who might appear in Chunyang Palace. He thought of the time limit so that Yang Chen could not inform the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, but he did not think that Yang Chen could also use the skills of an alchemist master to solve him. In his eyes, a junior in the late Jiadan stage who did not have the help of a master of the Deshang stage was still a person who could be pinched by others. If he had known this earlier, he should have used another method, or more directly let Gao Jing take the goods in the hands of Yang Chun from a distance, or even kill Yang Chun as soon as he saw him, and then kill him instead of being so arrogant and letting Yang Chun come to such a close distance. In any case, it was too late to regret now. The only hope was to control either of the two women before Yang Chun came over slowly. Moreover, this hope was not the most secure. If Yang Chun did not care about the life and death of the two women, he would still die. At least Hu Qinyi asked himself if he encountered this situation, maybe he would make a choice. There was only such a slim hope, but Hu Qinyi still had to grasp it. If he could control one, he might be able to gamble. If he couldn't even do this, then he would really die here. For a moment, Hu Qinyi even regretted it a little. Yang Chun was still his savior. He shouldn't have dealt with him like this. It was just that this thought flashed by, and he couldn't have more thoughts to think about it. His body had already rushed out and rushed to Shi Shanshan, who was closest to him, seeing that his hand was less than 2 inches away from touching Shi Shanshan. Hu Qinyi's body suddenly stopped in the air and then flew out quickly. Chapter 903. It wasn't that Hu Qinyi didn't want to move forward a few inches, and it was impossible for him to fly with his current ability. The reason why his body flew back was because at the shoulder, waist, and abdomen, he didn't know when there were 5 hooks. The hooks were very cruel and hooked into Hu Qinyi's body, and he was pulled away. Poor Hu Qinyi, as an elder of the Taishaman, a master of the Deshang stage at this moment, he was like a fish caught by a fish hook. He was lifted in the air. No matter how he struggled, he couldn't get rid of the 5 different colored hooks. It was not known what the material of the hooks was, but they hooked Hu Qinyi's 2 scapulae, the 2 lowest ribs, and a kneecap. The red blood flowed down from these 5 openings and was instantly absorbed by a black and red vine that suddenly appeared on the ground. Subsequently, the black and red vine was like a snake, entangled Hu Qinyi's body. The top vine even directly drilled into the wound on Hu Qinyi's body, and the sound of sucking blood made a creepy sound. The blood of a living Deshang stage master was the best tonic for the blood phantom vine, and the same was true for the blue jade vine that swallowed the blood phantom vine. This level of tonic, not everyone could stay alive. There were not many opportunities like this. Hu Qinyi's eyes widened directly. There was a painful expression on his face. He tried to inhale, but it seemed that he couldn't breathe. His face was red, and it took a while for it to return to normal. But the whole person seemed to have become thinner at this moment, and his face became extremely pale. A lot of blood loss and spiritual power dissipation. Hu Qinyi's whole person seemed to have become a mollusk, softly lying on the ground, and it was difficult to even move a finger. The high and mighty elder of the Taishaman, the master of the Deshang stage, suddenly became such a stray dog appearance, which made Hu Qinyi unable to accept it in any case. Where did it go wrong? How could it end up like this? The black-red vine was naturally a bai, but a bai was not kind enough to detoxify Hu Qinyi. It just madly absorbed Hu Qinyi's blood, just like it occupied all the blood vessels of Huawanding. Now the blue jade blood phantom vine did the same thing. The body that had been tempered by the thunder tribulation and Yin fire tribulation was indeed stronger than the body of an ordinary cultivator. At least in terms of vitality, it was dozens of times stronger. The same was true in terms of regenerative ability. As soon as the blood was sucked dry, the body naturally began to produce new blood crazily, which then benefited the jasper blood phantom vine. Of course, what hooked Hu Qinyi was the 5-element hook that Yang Chun got from the treasure house of the Dragon Palace. Yang Chun was angry that Hu Qinyi dared to hurt the 2 women, so he was merciless. Hu Qinyi's shoulder blade was hooked by the 5-element hook. Even if he had spiritual power, he couldn't break free, not to mention that his ribs and knees were all pierced. Even if Hu Qinyi had great abilities, he couldn't escape from Yang Chen's control. If he was entangled by the jasper blood phantom vine, even if an earth immortal or heaven immortal came, he couldn't save Hu Qinyi from the hands of Yang Chun. However, Yang Chun couldn't pay attention to Hu Qinyi at the moment. He was more concerned about the injuries of the 2 women. especially in the state of serious injuries at the moment. The pulse-calming powder medicinal pill also affected the two women, which was likely to further aggravate their injuries. Under the attack of the formation, Yang Chun couldn't walk faster. Relying on the strong defense of the Golden Bell, he resisted the attack of the formation and walked step by step to the center of the formation. Fortunately, the two women were in the center of the formation, and the attack of the formation would not affect them. So far, the injuries they suffered were still the original injuries of Hu Qianyi, plus the effect of the pulse-calming powder medicinal pill. Because the injuries were too serious, the two women were in a coma, and their breathing was weak. Yang Chun didn't say anything. The flame in his hand flashed, and 1,000-year-old ginseng turned into juice. Yang Chun didn't care about wasting it. He took a mouthful and put it into the mouths of the two women. No matter what, he had to hang on to his life first. The surrounding pulse-calming powdered medicinal qi was still raging. Yang Chen's eyebrows wrinkled slightly. With a move of his mind, two fire dragons emerged from his body and turned into a huge fire dragon with a length of hundreds of feet. They burned wildly around the surrounding dozens of miles, completely burning the pulse-calming powdered medicinal qi. Not all flames could easily resist the effect of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill. However, it was obvious that the yin-yang heaven-burning fire was not within this limitation. Soon, the surrounding medicinal aura disappeared without a trace. Yang Chun took back the fire dragon, and then released Wang Yong and the old tree demon from another space. Hu Qianyi was unconscious, and the formation was not controlled by anyone, and the attack had completely stopped. The two had just seen everything that happened outside in Yang Chen's space. As soon as they came out, the old tree demon said nothing and immediately began to take root on the formation. The powerful tree roots quickly wrapped the entire area where the formation was located. Then, the old tree demon exerted his strength. The formation that Hu Qianyi had carefully arranged was directly broken by the old tree demon from the formation eye. The formation was broken into pieces, and the materials used to set up the formation were scattered all over the ground. Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue were moisturized by the Millennium Ginseng liquid, and their faces looked a little ruddy. Yang Chun carefully examined the physical condition of the two women. Yang Chun and the two women had an engagement, so there was no pressure to do these things, and there was no taboo. After a check, even Yang Chun couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. He didn't know what kind of resistance Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue made at the time. Hu Qianyi actually hurt the two women so badly. At least half of the meridians of Sun Qingxue's whole body were broken, and Shi Shanshan was even more seriously injured. 90% of her meridians were destroyed. According to the popular saying, the cultivation of the two women has been destroyed by Hu Qianyi. Without the nourishment of powerful spiritual power, the original youthful and beautiful appearance of the two women began to gradually change. In less than a month, they looked like two middle-aged women, and this change would intensify with the passage of time. Within a year, the two women would become their original age and the appearance of ordinary people. Hu Qianyi took the two women as hostages and injured them like this, and he also directly targeted the genius disciples of the two major sects. Whether from his own face or from the perspective of preventing the revenge of the two major sects, he did not intend to let Yang Chun and the two women live from the beginning, so he has not treated the two women. The two women have been dragged to the present, and their injuries have become more and more serious. If Yang Chun came a few days later, maybe the two women would not have to wait for Hu Qianyi to make a move, and their souls would go to hell. Fortunately, after swallowing the ginseng liquid, the situation of the two women was also eased, and the pulse-calming powder medicinal pill was also a lucky hit. The messy spiritual power in the two women's bodies dissipated, and it seemed that they were no longer dying. Chapter 904. With the 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill in hand, as long as the two women were still breathing, Yang Chun could be sure to save their lives. However, now that the two women's cultivation base was destroyed, it was a tricky problem, and it might be more troublesome. The urgent task was to save the lives of the two women first. The 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill's medicinal effect was too strong, and the two women whose cultivation base was destroyed would definitely not be able to bear it. Even the first-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill was not something that the two women could easily take now. If the spiritual power contained in the medicinal pill was too strong, it would not save people, but kill people. Slightly from the previous refining of the first-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, it was cut into 10 pieces and fed one to each of the two women. There was no way around it. Even if it was the first-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, it could treat the injuries below the yuanying stage. At this moment, the two could only bear this amount at most. The feeding was done by Yang Chun mouth to mouth, first melting the medicinal pill and then pouring it into the mouths of the two women, just like the ginseng liquid before. It was a pity that the two women were unconscious now. Otherwise, it would be another charming scene. Using the pulse-calming powder medicinal pill first was extremely good for the stabilization of the injury. Without the rampaging spiritual power in the body, the medicinal effect of the medicinal pill could be completely concentrated on the treatment. The efficacy of the Lingji mushroom jade pill was very good. After a while, Shi Shanshan's mouth began to make a slight moan, and there was a painful expression on her face. Although this would make her more painful than the initial coma, the recovery of feeling was undoubtedly a precursor to the recovery of the injury. Sun Qingxue next to her was still in a coma. However, the injuries of the two people were different. Shi Shanshan's injury was much more serious. More than 90% of the meridians in her body were destroyed, so there was still severe pain when she was treated by the medicinal pill. Sun Qingxue, on the other hand, was much better. She was slowly treated in a coma. For the time being, the injuries of the two women were stabilized, and they would not deteriorate in the short term. Yang Chun quickly found 2 boulders and used the flying sword to carve them into 2 not-so-beautiful bathtubs. Then he carefully put the 2 women in it, and then soaked the 2 women in it with the 4 Seas mysterious coral liquid, only exposing their heads to breathe. After doing all this, Yang Chun took the bathtub with the 2 women into the medicine garden. Around the 2 women, there were transplanted 10,000 years old spirit ginseng and 10,000 years old jade ganoderma. The little spiritual power that escaped from the growing spirit medicine was enough to nourish the 2 women now. After settling the 2 women, Yang Chun finally came to Hu Qianni. At this moment, Hu Qianni had long been tortured by the blue jade blood phantom vine. Without the support of powerful spiritual power, he was weak as if he had been sick for 100 years. He couldn't move, even worse than Elder Hua. Yang Chun waved his hand, and Yang Chun took out all the blue jade blood phantom vines. Getting a chance to breathe, Hu Qianni's body immediately began to recover slowly, and after a while, his face had a ruddy color. It was worthy of being tempered by the thunder tribulation and fire tribulation. Even without the support of spiritual power, he still had such a strong ability to survive. However, at this moment, Hu Qianni could still maintain his life. As for escaping in front of Yang Chun, Wang Yong, and the old tree demon, he didn't even think about it. Not to mention that he was so weak now, even if he was in his heyday, it was impossible. Looking at the weak appearance of the old guy, Yang Chun wiped the remaining 1,000 years ginseng liquid that was still on his hand into Hu Qianni's mouth. After he recovered a little bit of his strength, he picked up Hu Qianni with one hand and began to slap left and right with the other hand. In this series of slaps, Yang Chun almost converged all the strength of his body, only using the slightest wave of his hand. Even so, Hu Qianni was almost fainted by more than a dozen slaps. His head was blown softly, his mouth was open, and more than a dozen teeth stained with blood flew out directly. Hu Qianni's identity was special, and Yang Chun didn't want him to die yet. Keep Hu Qianni and send him to the 2 major sects sect to let the 2 major sects know the identity of the person who attacked their disciple. This was definitely a heavy slap in the face for the Taishaman. Don't say that they were all from the same Dao sect, but this kind of thing between the major sects was no longer a secret. Don't say that in order to force Yang Chun to do anything, the big people like to say that those who achieve great things don't care about trifles. Just the big bullying the small. Hu Qianni, a master of the Deshang stage, bullied two Jiedon stage juniors, and even injured the two women like this. It was enough to make the reputation of the Taishamen discredited, and they could no longer lift their heads. As for the matter of being caught and exposed for the murder of other disciples, it could be investigated next. Even if it was the Taishamen, they must give an explanation. Not being caught was one thing, but being caught and exposed was something that could not be denied even if one wanted to. After slapping Hu Qianni's face, Yang Chun was still angry. Wang Yong and the old tree demon did not mean to stop him at all. They did not know the true identity of Hu Qianni, but for those who dared to hit Yang Chun, the two did not mind bloody revenge. Yang Chun easily controlled a master of the Deshang stage. Wang Yong and the old tree demon did not feel strange at all. Along the way, Yang Chun was carefully refining a kind of medicinal pill. They all saw it in their eyes. They thought that this kind of medicinal pill was used to deal with this guy. Later, Yang Chun set fire to dozens of miles, which made their guess closer to the truth. For Yang Chun's seemingly unaboveboard means, whether it was Yang Chun or the old tree demon, they all felt that it was reasonable. The other party was a master of the Deshang stage, but also used such a despicable means to threaten Yang Chun, even if Yang Chun used despicable means to deal with it. Therefore, no one sympathized with Hu Qianni's fate. This guy is the elder of the Taishamen, Hu Qianni. Yang Chun didn't say the identity of Hu Qianni until this moment. The old tree demon had no awe at all for the Taishamen, so he did not respond to the name. But after Wang Yong heard it, he was shocked. The elder of the Taishamen, but also the guy who was saved by Yang Chun, unexpectedly repaid kindness with enmity, did this kind of thing, or to the two juniors of the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, to threaten a Jiedon stage junior. This was simply an unprecedented scandal. Repaying kindness with enmity, bullying the weak, despicable means, disregarding morality. Any one of them was a great sin. This Hu Qianni unexpectedly took all of them. Just take this guy back. Let's Sect Master Lu and the Lord of Tantai have a look what kind of face the people of the Taishamen have. On Yang Chen's face, there was still anger. I would like to see how the Taishamen plan to explain this matter this time. Chapter 905. The two women were seriously injured, and Yang Chun also carefully rushed back to Chunyang Palace. When he came back, it was at least twice as slow as when he went. Along the way, Yang Chun was carefully treating the injuries of the two women. Every day, he would give the two women 1/10 of the first-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill. When he returned to Chunyang Palace, the injuries of the two women had been completely stabilized, and there was no danger of deterioration. Sun Xingxue had also woken up, but her body could not move. Shi Shanshan was still in a coma, but it was no longer the kind of painful dissatisfaction, but it eased down as if she was sleeping. Seeing the appearance of the two women, even the head of the palace was shocked. He could not be surprised what the purple liquid Yang Chun used to soak the two women was. He eagerly took the pulse of the two women's wrists. After a while, his face was so gloomy that it almost scraped off the frost. The cold plum fairy and the dancing snow fairy, half of the meridians of one's body were destroyed, and the other was destroyed by 90%. This had almost sentenced the two women to become disabled. But the two women were implicated because of Yang Chun. How could the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island give up? For Hu Qianni, who was captured and brought back, the head of the palace even had the heart to kill his whole family and execute his 9 generations. You don't want to be an elder of the Taishamen, but you have to be a thief. Not only did you make a fool of yourself, but you also brought a lot of trouble to the sect and even implicated the Chunyang Palace. You really deserve to die. Two cultivation geniuses with limitless futures, two beautiful fairies with unparalleled beauty, were ruined by him just like that. Not to mention the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island. Even the head of the Chunyang Palace felt it was a pity. Even if you bully the weak, you can't do it so outrageously, right? Although the people were saved and the culprit was also caught, the following things were more troublesome. The two sect leaders had not received the news yet, but they would definitely send the higher-ups of the sect over. Who knew how furious they would be when they saw the two women like this? Hu Qianyi's arrest also meant another big trouble. Was the Chunyang Palace going to openly fight with the Taishamen now? The time was not yet right, but such a thing happened. How would the Taishamen react? All of them were headaches for the head of the palace. Is there any hope for the two fairies? At this time, the head of the palace could only put the hope of solving the problem on Yangchun. If the two women could recover, then at least it would be easier to explain to the two sect. If the two sect joined forces, they might be able to fight against the Taishamen. Along the way, Yangchun pondered over how to repair the two girls' damaged meridians. In reality, it was not difficult to restore their meridians. What was difficult was to restore their cultivation without damaging their Tao foundation. Yangchun was not willing to let the two future peerless masters die so quietly because of him. I will try my best. Yangchun could only answer in this way. Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue were originally in the Jedon stage. They have not experienced the thunder tribulation and the Yin fire tribulation to temper their bodies. They did not have the strong resilience of the masters of the Deshang stage. The 5-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, the two women could not stand at all. Although there were many 10,000 years spirit medicines in Yang Chen's medicine garden, there was no one that could make the two women recover. Now the best way Yang Chen could think of was to heal their injuries and then cultivate from the beginning. Although, with the qualifications of the two women, as long as they did not damage their Tao foundation, even if they started from the beginning, because of this ordeal, their state of mind would be more mature, but it would be a blessing in disguise, and their future achievements might be higher. A mere 200 or 300 years of hard work was not worth mentioning for a great principal golden immortal. However, Yang Chun still hoped that they could improve their cultivation base in a balanced manner with himself and Gao Yugong Sunling. Perhaps it could be done in some drastic ways, but it required a certain risk. For the time being, Yang Chun did not intend to consider it. Hu Qianyi had to be dealt with. If he did not make him lose his reputation, if he did not pull the Taishamen down from the moral high ground, Yang Chun would never give up. Under the careful care of Yang Chun and Gao Yugong Sunling, Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan finally woke up one after another. There was only a day's difference. The injury had been completely stabilized, and under the nourishment of Yang Chen's medicinal pills, the appearance of the two women did not become older, but they still looked like middle-aged women. When Sun Qingxue woke up, she immediately noticed the situation of her body. Seeing Yang Chun, she knew that she was safe and felt relieved. But the first thing she did was to ask for a mirror. When Sun Qingxue saw her appearance in the mirror, it seemed that the whole person had collapsed. She locked herself in the room alone and did not want to come out again. The more beautiful a woman was, the more she would pay attention to her appearance, especially in front of her sweetheart. When her cultivation base was still there, her beauty was unparalleled, but now she was no longer as beautiful as before. How could it not break Sun Qingxue's heart? Shi Shanshan's performance was slightly better. After the woman, who had always been cold to others, noticed the situation of her body, there was only a flash of indescribable complex emotions in her pupils, and then everything went back to normal, still so cold. However, anyone could see that Shi Shanshan also cared about her appearance. At least when facing Yang Chun, she always turned her face to the side, intentionally or unintentionally, not letting Yang Chun see it. Since Shi Shanshan was like this, Sun Qingxue did not even let Yang Chun enter the door. She blocked him outside and leaned against the door, as if she did not want to see Yang Chun again. "I don't want to see you." Sun Qingxue was in the room, and with a sobbing tone, she shouted to Yang Chun, who was outside the door, "I don't want you to see me now. I don't deserve you." In the end, Sun Qingxue was already crying. She was about to get married, but encountered such a disaster. Sun Qingxue, who felt that her appearance could not be restored, no longer had the courage to face Yang Chun. "Don't worry, I will help you recover." Of course, Yang Chun knew why Sun Qingxue was crying like this. He knew that he was not a person who judged people by their appearance, and he would not change his heart because of Sun Qingxue's change in appearance. However, Yang Chen still underestimated the importance that beautiful women attach to their appearance. It seemed that even the loss of her cultivation was not as big a blow as the aging of her appearance. Hearing Yang Chen's words, Sun Qingxue stopped crying in the room and asked doubtfully, "Really? Since we met, I don't think I have ever lied to you, have I?" Yang Chen could only smile bitterly and ask Sun Qingxue, who was inside the door. This sentence had enough effect. In Sun Qingxue's mind, the words, "I didn't lie to you, did I?" that Yang Chen had said when they were together kept flashing through her mind. Finally, she chose to believe in Yang Chen again. "Can you really restore our appearance?" Sun Qingxue opened the door as fast as she could and asked Yang Chen in surprise. Chapter 906. For restoring his appearance, Yang Chen still had absolute certainty. When he killed Chang Yi and the Nine Heavens' mysterious daughter on the Immortal executioner platform, he left behind a unique appearance pill and face-preserving heart sutra, which was most suitable for Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan at the moment. Hearing that Yang Chen had a way to restore his appearance, even Shi Shanshan, who seemed to have accepted the status quo, was a little uneasy. The expression of surprise on her face could not be concealed in any way. Seeing this situation, Yang Chen finally understood that no matter how high a woman's cultivation base was, no matter how much she didn't care about her appearance and her words, but in her heart, she still put her appearance in a very important position. Fortunately, Yang Chen had all the materials for refining the Chang Yi appearance pill, and they were all good things that had been cultivated for thousands of years. At this time, it was simply the most suitable place. Here, Yang Chen was planning to open the furnace to refine the appearance pill, and the people of the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island had already arrived. Both sides were very surprised and very worried when they received the news. The place where Hu Qianyi met Yang Chen. The two major sects had to pass by Chunyang Palace, so they simply met at Chunyang Palace. The Blue Cloud sect was the master of Sun Qingxue, the Deshang stage Elder Hua, accompanied by the Blue Cloud sect's law enforcement hall master, who was also in the Deshang stage, Elder Shi Yinhe. The arrival of the Green Jade Immortal Island was even more surprising. In addition to Shi Shanshan's master, the Lord of Tantai also rushed to Chunyang Palace. When they came to Chunyang Palace, the two major sects were told that Yang Chen had rescued the people. This news made people on both sides breathe a sigh of relief, as long as the people were still there. However, when they saw Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue with their own eyes and thoroughly understood their current situation, the experts of the two sects all jumped up in fury. Two promising disciples had been destroyed just like that. No matter which sect they were in, they wouldn't let this go. The unlucky Hu Qianyi was pulled out again. Even though he had used his powerful cultivation to change his appearance and figure, he was unable to hide his true identity in front of these experts and was immediately recognized. Hu Qianyi. After the Lord of Tantai recognized Hu Qianyi's identity, his expression changed several times, as if he couldn't believe it. He suppressed his anger and calmly said to Hu Qianyi, "Good. What an elder of the Taishaman. What an expert of the great ascension stage." He spoke very slowly, but anyone could hear the hatred in the Lord of Tantai's teeth. The dignified elder of the Taishaman actually did this kind of thing that disregarded morality and justice, and still made a move on the younger generation. In any case, it was unjustifiable. Shi Yinhe and Hua Wanting did not have such good self-restraint as the Lord of Tantai. Although they were already masters of the Great Ascension stage, they both had a fiery personality. Elder Hua didn't care whether Hu Qianyi had already lost a dozen teeth in his mouth. He slapped Hu Qianyi's mouth and nose until Hu Qianyi's mouth and nose bled. The remaining dozen teeth were also slapped away. If it weren't for Hu Qianyi to be kept as evidence, Elder Hua couldn't wait to kill this guy directly to avenge his apprentice. Whether it was the Green Jade Immortal Island or the Blue Cloud sect, they all hated Hu Qianyi and the Taishaman. They had seen shameless people, but they had never seen Taishaman so shameless. In order to deal with the Jidan stage younger generation alchemist, they even vented their anger on other sect, and they did not dare to be above board. After changing their appearance, they did it stealthily. Where was the demeanor of the first sect in the Tao sects? At this time, even if Hu Qinyi wanted to argue that this matter had nothing to do with the Taishaman, it was useless. Who would believe it? Perhaps the sect master of the Taishaman could only pinch his nose and admit it in the face of this situation. Now, it was not only Yang Chun and the Chunyang Palace's side of the story. Zhu Xiyuan was arrested, Hu Qinyi was arrested, and there were also two direct parties, Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue. Even if Hu Qinyi could bring the dead back to life, he couldn't deny what he had done. In front of Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue, the Lord of Tantai still maintained a restraint, but when he went to the Chunyang Palace Hall to discuss, without waiting for everyone to speak, the Lord of Tantai had already slammed the table and shouted, "This is not over." The poor table directly turned into powder and dissipated with the wind. The Lord of Tantai couldn't help but be angry. Shi Shanshan was the disciple with the best qualifications received by the Green Jade Immortal Island in the past 1,000 years. In the future, she would be the future hope of the Green Jade Immortal Island. She was destroyed like this. How could people not be angry? The Taishaman must give an explanation in any case. Elder Shi Yinhe of the Blue Cloud sect was even more powerful and immediately threatened. If they can't restrain the disciples, I will discipline them for them. Although Sect Master Lu of the Blue Cloud sect was not present, Elder Shi Yinhe, as the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall, also represented the opinion of Sect Master Lu to a certain extent. This matter would never be given up. The two major sects have never had such resentment towards the Taishaman as today. Two talented disciples were destroyed, and the hard work of the sect for hundreds of years was destroyed. If the two major sects swallowed their anger, who would join them in the future? The Lord of Tantai was present, and immediately the Green Jade Immortal Island sent a harshly worded note to the Taishaman, and it was personally issued in the tone of the Lord of Tantai. Sect Master Lu of the Blue Cloud sect was not there, but Shi Yinhe also decided to return immediately and report the matter to Sect Master Lu. As for Elder Hua, he had to stay behind to take care of his beloved disciple. Yang Chun, is there any hope for the injuries of Shanshan and Little Shui? After venting his anger, the Lord of Tantai began to ask Yang Chun about the healing. Although there were several masters of the Dashang stage present, when it came to the means of healing and treatment, they were not Yang Chun's opponent. Even the injuries of the Black Tiger predecessor and so many masters of the Dashang stage could be healed. This small injury should not be too difficult, right? There is no problem with the recovery of the meridians. I can guarantee that the Tao Foundation will not be damaged. The answer given by Yang Chun made everyone very happy, but Yang Chun still said his concerns. However, it is not so easy to recover in a short period of time. Why is this? Could it be that the 5th grade Lingji Mushroom Jade Pill is not good? The Lord of Tantai was still full of confidence. At least for Yang Chen's alchemy for his wife, it would never be discounted. Now listening to Yang Chun, it seemed that there was still an accident, and he immediately asked. The 5th grade Lingji Mushroom Jade Pill, the bodies of Shanshan and Little Shui can't afford it. Yang Chen also told the truth and did not conceal it. Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan were both present. When they heard Yang Chen's words, the two women seemed to be happy, especially Shi Shanshan. She seemed to have understood a lot of things. Chapter 907. Yang Chen's explanation made the Lord of Tantai understand a lot. There were some medicinal pills that ordinary people really couldn't afford. The 5th grade Lingji Mushroom Jade Pill in a mortal world could already be regarded as an immortal pill. If ordinary people ate it, there was absolutely only one result. That was the body would explode and die. For them, the immortal pill was not a life-saving medicinal pill, but a life-chasing poison. Without the baptism of thunder tribulation and fire tribulation, the medicinal power of the 5th grade medicinal pill could not be withstood at all. Perhaps they could barely withstand the medicinal power of the 4th grade, but the medicinal effect of the 4th grade was not enough to restore their cultivation base. Well, first keep the Tao Foundation. It's not a big deal to cultivate back again. The Lord of Tantai nodded. Everyone was a master. They could take it up and put it down. If they could keep the Tao foundation, then it would only be a waste of 200 years. No one would care too much. Also, the last time you asked Shan Shan to ask, this old woman will give you an answer here. The Lord of Tantai directly represented the master of Shan Shan and said to Yang Chun, about the direction of Shan Shan's cultivation, we did not force her. Everything depends on Shan Shan's own intentions. If you have any cultivation method here, feel free to use it. Shan Shan will be your wife in the future. She will naturally listen to you. Yang Chun used to be afraid that if he gave Shan Shan some cultivation methods, it would cause a rebound on the side of the Green Jade Immortal Island. So he asked Shan Shan to ask clearly. Now the Lord of Tanai finally gave Yang Chun a definite answer. Also, the cultivation method that you take out, Shan Shan doesn't have to consider the impact of the sect, nor does she have to hand it over to the sect. Since the decision has been made, the Lord of Tantai simply appeared more generous, the people of the Yang family. Cultivating the Yang family's cultivation method, there is no need to say anything to the Green Jade Immortal Island. In between the words, he had directly buckled Shan Shan as a member of the Yang family. Blue Cloud sect has the same intention. Elder Hua was there the whole time, and the Lord of Tantai had the highest status. After the island master finished speaking, it was her turn as Sun Qingshue's master to speak. Although I am Sun Qingshue's master, I will not be so petty. Little Shui is also a member of the Yang family, so it's naturally not a problem for her to cultivate your Yang family's cultivation technique. She also doesn't need to ask the sect for instructions. Both of them directly regarded Shan Shan and Sun Qingxue as members of the Yang family, as if they were afraid that this time the appearance of the two women would change and Yang Chun would change his mind. After all, Yang Chun was a 5th grade alchemist master. If there was no peerless appearance of Shan Shan and Sun Qingxue, maybe there would be other sect who would use a beauty trap to enter. At that time, the two major sects would lose more than they gain. On the contrary, Sun Qingxue and Shan Shan both heard some hidden hope from Yang Chen's words. It was not so easy to restore the skills, but there was still a way, not at a loss. It seemed that Yang Chun still had something to say, but these could be said when they were alone with Yang Chun. There was no need to mention it in front of everyone. At present, Yang Chen's task was to immediately refine the appearance pill for the two women. This was not only the request of Shan Shan and Sun Qingxue, but also several Deshang stage elders of the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, including the Lord of Tantai, were among them and made a collective request. From Shan Shan and Sun Qingxue, the women learned that Yang Chun was very sure that there was no problem in restoring their appearance, which made the women overjoyed. Although cultivators had a longer lifespan than mortals and looked younger, this did not mean that cultivators could live forever. Generally speaking, within 1,000 years, as long as they could reach the Yuanying stage, they could basically maintain their youth forever. But after this year, even the masters of the Deshang stage would undergo some slow changes. Although they would not become old and decrepit, they would also change from a youthful appearance to a middle-aged appearance. Chunyang Palace was okay. There was no female cultivator of this level for the time being, but now the masters of the two major sects who came to Chunyang Palace were all at this stage. Everyone looked like a middle-aged woman. Since Yang Chun could restore the appearance of Shan Shan and Sun Qingxue, two women who currently had no spiritual power in their bodies, from middle-aged appearance to youthful beauty, naturally he could also restore the appearance of these masters. As long as it was a woman, they would be extremely interested in this news. They were even willing to pay a high price for it. Of course, there was a more important point. If Yang Chun could really restore the appearance of the two women, then naturally there would be no problem of falling in love. The Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect were still able to maintain a good relationship with Yang Chun. Not only these masters, even his master Gao Yu and senior apprentice sister Gong Sunling, after knowing that Yang Chun could refine the appearance pill, they also complained about Yang Chun. They had wasted more than 200 years of their lives because they hadn't made such a good thing earlier. Although in their current situation, There was no need for any appearance pill at all. Yang Chun was unable to refute the words of the women. He wanted to cry, but had no tears. He could only silently accept the criticism of the women, and then obediently began to retreat to refined pills. Fairy Chong Yi's appearance was also the best in the heavenly court in the past. Naturally, she had her outstanding methods of retaining her appearance. This appearance pill was one of them. In addition, there was also a mental cultivation method of retaining one's appearance, which was also firmly remembered in Yang Chen's mind. Maybe next time, Yang Chen would have to take out this facial cultivation method in order to please the women. While Yang Chen was retreating to refined pills, Elder Shi Yinhe of the Blue Cloud sect quickly rushed back to the Blue Cloud sect. Then Sect Master Liu also issued a stern-worded note and found the Taishaman. Chunyang Palace was naturally no exception. In the end, this matter was because of Yang Chen, so it was also very rude to ask the Taishaman to explain it and give an explanation. The two sect plus the Chunyang Palace simultaneously asked the Taishaman for an explanation, but the high-level members of the Taishaman were confused. What Hu Qinyi did outside, he did not tell anyone in the sect, so the Taishaman who received the note did not know what happened. The matter was related to the Deshang stage elder Hu Qinyi. They looked for him in the sect, but they could not find the shadow of Elder Hu. When they learned from the representative of the Chunyang Palace that Elder Hu Qinyi actually kidnapped the Cold Plum Fairy and the Dancing Snow Fairy to threaten Yang Chen, asking Yang Chen to take out the alchemy secrets, and seriously injuring the two fairies and abolishing all the cultivation of the two fairies, the Taishaman sect master Li almost fell directly to the ground. Of course, the sect also wanted Yang Chen's alchemy secrets, but Elder Hu Qinyi, why did you have to kidnap the two fairies of the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island? Even if it was to kidnap the other two fiancés of Yang Chen of the Chunyang Palace, the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island could not be easily provoked. This was good. He was caught and found out by the sect. How could the sect deal with the aftermath for him? Thinking of this, Sect Master Li could not help but have a headache. Chapter 908. It must be said that the note issued by the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect, and Chunyang Palace was discussed by everyone and was carried out step by step. The first batch of notes was just the three sects' dissatisfaction with the Taishaman elder Hu's attack on their own disciples. At first, Sect Master Li thought that it was just that elder who was seen by someone, and he couldn't deny it. So he hid. Naturally, this kind of thing must be tricky. It was impossible to settle the two major sects without a lot of bleeding. Bleeding alone was not enough. At least a few scapegoats must be found. Hu Qinyi, as a Deshang stage elder, must not have an accident, and he must not have an accident. Therefore, this thing must be done by someone else. Therefore, a story of some scoundrels disguised as Elder Hu's appearance and doing such a thing that angered people and gods, framing Elder Hu and the Taishaman was formed in the mind of Sect Master Li. Taishaman was the largest sect of the Dao sects, and Hu Qinyi was also an elder of the Taishaman, a model for disciples and a model for cultivators. How could he do such a thing that disregards morality and justice? It must be done by people with ulterior motives. The purpose of these people must be to destroy the harmonious relationship between the Taishaman and the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect, and Chunyang Palace, and to sow discord in order to achieve their ulterior motives. This kind of people must be completely uprooted and eradicated. The Taishaman, who took the world's Dao sects as their own responsibility, spared no effort and immediately found something wrong from some clues. They sent masters and quickly attacked and killed all these treacherous people, destroying their further conspiracy and maintaining the stability and unity of the Dao sects. After all, the other party was pretending to be the Taishaman elder Hu. The Taishaman did not take it too far. They took out enough nutrients to comfort the two injured fairies and put on a low posture to apologize. Their noble character and unquestionable integrity would definitely make the world admire them. In this way, the Taishaman had all the face, and they could also use this matter to make the reputation of the sect go up to the next level, which was a perfect solution. So what if others have doubts? As long as the scapegoat looked like Elder Hu enough, it would be fine. Anyway, the dead could not speak. Who could prove that it was Elder Hu at that time, and not this guy who had died? Below the major sect, including the Chunyang Palace, who dared to disagree. As for the Green Jade, Immortal Island, and Blue Cloud sect, it was easier to get rid of them. Elder Hu was a master of the Dashang stage, dealing with 2 juniors in the Jidan stage. Couldn't he control the situation? Could Yangchen rescue the hostages safely from Elder Hu's hands? This was simply a joke. Maybe this was a godsend opportunity for the Taishaman to deal with the Chunyang Palace. What was the intention of framing Taishaman like this? Could it be that the sect had a 5th-grade alchemist, and they didn't know what was going on? It was a good time to mobilize forces and uproot the Chunyang Palace in one fell swoop. Sect Masterly even began to discuss the feasibility of this plan with several other core elders. Everyone had to decide whether to keep Yang Qin's life for their own use after the destruction of the Chunyang Palace, or to imprison him and torture him. In short, they had to figure out the secret of Yang Qin's alchemy. What Elder Hu could not do, the sect would do. As for how to deal with Elder Hu's behavior that was not conducive to the sect, naturally there were sect rules to serve, but the Taishaman could deal with it. Outsiders could not. This was the logic of the Taishaman. On the sect master's side, on the one hand, he immediately sent people to find Elder Hu had been missing. On the other hand, he responded to the notes of the Green Jade, Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect, and Chunyang Palace. As for the next things, they would be launched one after another, accumulating the general trend bit by bit until the Taishaman were completely removed, and then the Chunyang Palace was destroyed. The first thing the Taishaman did was to respond to the 3 sect through the Foreign Affairs Hall, and publicly declared that this was definitely someone with ulterior motives who was framing them. Elder Hu would never do such a thing, and the Taishaman had never done such a thing to the 3 sect. From top to bottom, there was an uproar. The incident of the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect, and Chunyang Palace was not publicized, and it was limited to the top executives of the 3 sections. Now that the Taishaman made such a move, it immediately caused a chain reaction. This kind of blatant bullying of the weak and attacking the genius disciple of the other party was absolutely despised by most people. But at this moment, the 3 sect did not disclose this matter, but the Taishaman made this matter public to the world, as if the Taishaman had a clear conscience. Immediately, several small sects jumped out and waved the flag for the Taishaman. How could the leader of the Dao sects do this kind of thing? There must be a mistake. The 2 major sects should not be provoked by villains with ulterior motives and destroy the great situation of stability and unity of the Dao sections. Some sect condemned this kind of behavior against the younger generation of other sect. Whether it was done by the Taishaman or not, it was a fact that the Cold Plum Fairy and Dancing Snow Fairy were attacked and seriously injured. The Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island did not need to sacrifice their own genius disciples to do this kind of thing. There were also some sects and rogue cultivators who had a different mindset. If their skills were not as good as others, then there was nothing to say. As for bullying the weak, it was even more absurd. Could it be that when the younger generation provoked them, the masters could not fight back and teach them a lesson? For a time, the entire Dao sect was boiling, and a frenzy of debate was aroused. This was exactly the effect that the Taishaman wanted. The more intense the quarrel here, the more it would pave the way for the later action against Chunyang Palace. At that time, as long as there was evidence that the people of Chunyang Palace were stirring up trouble, then taking the opportunity to destroy Chunyang Palace would be the general trend. Even the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect could not stop it. The calculation was good, but the only problem was that now Hu Qianyi, Elder Hu, was nowhere to be found. It must be known that Elder Hu is a key figure in the whole matter. The Taishaman certainly had to have an iron evidence that Elder Hu was not present at the time of the incident. But no matter how to make the proof, they had to discuss it with Elder Hu, and everyone had to match their statements, so as not to make a mistake. But Elder Hu had been missing for a long time. Could it be that something had happened? A master of the Dashang stage would never die so easily, and the life jade card of the Chuaning Hall was not broken, indicating that Elder Hu must be alive. Since Elder Hu was alive, and the Blue Cloud sect, The Green Jade Immortal Island and the Chunyang Palace also said that their three juniors, Shi Shanshan, Sun Qingxue, and Yang Chun, had returned to the sect. What did this mean? Elder who was captured? Elder who lost and was chased away? Elder who was injured? Impossible. They believed that if Hu Qinyi really did this kind of thing, he would never leave a loophole for the three sect to take advantage of. The only possibility was that Elder who got what he wanted, so he let them go. And what Elder who got should be Yang Chen's alchemy secrets. Chapter 909. A master of the Deshang stage plotted to take the things of a junior in the Jidan stage. If he still had to escape with injuries, it would simply be a big joke. This was absolutely impossible to happen, at least for the senior leaders of Taishaman. This was an impossible thing. From another perspective, Hu Qinyi's behavior was very questionable. Several senior leaders of Taishaman also had some different thoughts. Elder who never mentioned to the sect that he was going to do these things. He disappeared alone, presumably because he wanted to return secretly after it was done, as if it had never happened. But he shouldn't have done it. Elder whose own actions were not secret, and he was recognized, which was a big trouble. In fact, in the hearts of the senior leaders of Taishaman, it was already certain that this matter was done by Hu Qinyi, but they did not admit it verbally. This kind of thing was done as long as they did not let people get their sore feet. As for what it was about plotting to take the things of the Savior, it was even more nonsense. When Yang Chen was refining pills, he extorted a lot of things from Taishaman. If the people present were not afraid that they could not refine the spirit-congealing pills themselves, they would have already concentrated on killing Yang Chen. Elder who did this thing in advance, which was very good, especially when he got Yang Chen's alchemy secrets, which was even more to the appetite of Taishaman. The only problem was that Elder who did this thing, but he did not inform his sect. What did he want to do? Yang Chen's alchemy secrets. The supreme secret that could make people become a 5th-grade alchemist master. They did not know where Yang Chen found it, but now it seemed to have become the possession of Elder Hu. But Elder Hu himself was not an alchemist master. What did he want to do with this alchemy secrets? For Elder Hu, a group of senior leaders already had a different idea. However, the urgent task at the moment was to find the whereabouts of Elder Hu immediately, match the caliber, and then take out the secret he got from Yang Chen and hand it over to the sect. It must be said that the Taishaman had been the leaders of the Taoist sects for so many years, and they still had a lot of heritage. Even though the sect had suffered a great calamity and suffered a great loss in strength, there were still countless small sects that were willing to follow the sect's lead, waving flags and shouting battle cries. Under the superb control of the Taishaman, the argument that Elder who was falsely accused had gained the upper hand, and the wind began to move in the direction that was unfavorable to Chunyang Palace. No one dared to provoke the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, but Chunyang Palace was another matter. This matter was related to Yang Chen. Immediately, some people began to spread that it was self-directed by Chunyang Palace. After all, the Cold Plum Fairy and the Dancing Snow Fairy were now Yang Chen's fiancés. It was normal for them to give false testimony for Yang Chen. As soon as this statement came out, it won a lot of market share, and it was becoming more and more intense. In this case, the second batch of more severely worded notes from the three sect were sent to the Taishaman again, asking the Taishaman to give an explanation for Hu Qinyi's behavior. The general trend outside had already been formed. How could the Taishaman bow their heads and admit defeat at this moment? Naturally, they put on a righteous face and expressed condolences for the injuries of the Cold Plum Fairy and the Dancing Snow Fairy, but they firmly refused to admit that Elder who would do such a thing. It must be known that Elder who had been retreating in the sect since the last time he recovered from his injury, comprehending the insights after the last battle. He had not come out until now. How could he do such a thing? The three sect must have made a mistake. Maybe the two major sect were misled by some villains, so they thought that the Taishaman would do such a thing in order to suppress the younger generation. The Taishaman's reasons were very good. One was that Elder who was retreating and did not go out at all. 2 and 1. If Elder who really made a move, the three juniors in the Jidan stage, could they still go back alive to testify against him? This statement was indeed very convincing. A master of the Deshang stage, Not to mention the 3 juniors in the late Jidon stage. Even the 3 ancestors in the late Yuanying stage were not necessarily his opponents. If they really wanted to make a move, could they let them go back alive? As a result, the Taishaman statement was supported by most people. Under the intentional or unintentional guidance, the spearhead has been pointed directly at the Chunyang Palace. Some vanguards have even openly begun to clamor that the Chunyang Palace was now expanding its power and wanted to bring disaster to the world. On the surface, the Taishaman were all running to get rid of suspicion, but in secret, the high-level officials began to concentrate their forces and explore the truth of the Chunyang Palace. When the time came, they would use the power of thunder to completely uproot the Chunyang Palace, leaving no future trouble. The destruction of the Chunyang Palace was also an important blow to the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect. At the same time, it also cut off the idea of the 5 Elements sect and the Chinquin sect wanting to expand their strength. Without Yangchen's questioning inner heart pill, the 5 Elements sect and the Chinquin sect could only maintain the status quo. The reason why they wanted to destroy the Chunyang Palace so strongly was that the Taishaman had already obtained the pill recipes of the spirit congealing pill and the questioning inner heart pill. Even if no one could refine it now, they would study it for a few more years. If 10 or 20 years were not enough, then they would refine it in 100 or 2 years. After all, Yang Chun was from a small sect. He did not have the level and height of thinking from the standpoint of a big sect. He thought that he had already made a profit by exchanging some precious things with the pill recipe. But he did not expect that when he gave away the pill recipe, he also sowed the seeds of disaster for his own destruction. Good things. It was better for one person to enjoy them alone than to share them with several people. Yang Chun didn't even understand this truth. Speaking of which, Yang Chun was just a younger generation junior. It was natural that he didn't understand this, but the sect masters and elders of the Chunyang Palace didn't understand it either. This could only show that they were stupid and they deserved to be destroyed. Especially now that Yang Chen's alchemy secrets were likely to fall into the hands of Elder Hu Qianni, there was even less worry. How could the 5th grade alchemy master of other sects compare to their own 5th grade alchemy master? How could the sect allow a competitor of this level to appear? Of course, to destroy the Chunyang Palace, the Taishaman couldn't do it themselves. Otherwise, it would be easy to leave a pretext for the 2 major sects like the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, and it would also make the 5 Elements sect and Chinquin sect dissatisfied. In this regard, the Taishaman had a way. The Taishaman who were distributed outside had gathered their strength, which was enough to kill the Chunyang Palace from top to bottom. At that time, the useful people would stay, and the useless people would all be killed. Although Meiqing Mountain was ordinary, it was also a place of cultivation, wasn't it? There were also several female disciples with outstanding qualifications and excellent appearances in the Chunyang Palace, which could be secretly captured for several elders of the sect as furnaces. Everything was already under control. Only when the whereabouts of elder who were found, everything could be launched. Just when the high-level Taishaman had already planned to destroy the Chunyang Palace with satisfaction, the 3rd wave of notes from the 3 sect arrived again. Chapter 9-10. The content of the 3rd note was very simple. Your sect's elder Hu Qianni was kidnapped for extortion and was caught on spot. The witnesses and material evidence were all there, and the evidence was irrefutable. The Taishaman must give an explanation for this. This note was not carried out in private, but directly announced to the public. As soon as the news came out, the world was in an uproar. Being caught on the spot, this was something that couldn't be denied. What's more, the Taishaman had been vowing that elder who was in retreat in the sect. This time, the situation that the Taishaman had spent a lot of effort to create collapsed. Boom! After receiving the note, the Taishaman sect master Li's mind was roaring, his eyes were black, and he almost fainted. Even so, there was a stuffiness in his chest and abdomen, and a sweet thing came up from his throat. Sect master Li forcibly suppressed this surging blood and tried his best to swallow the blood that had reached his throat. This time, the blow was so great that he, a master of the late Yuanying stage, could not bear it. This was simply a thunderbolt from the blue, a thunderbolt that was enough to blow up the Taishaman. All the efforts made by the Taishaman before, in the face of this news, became a ridiculous clown show, and it was staged in front of the Blue Cloud sect of the Green Jade Immortal Island and Chunyang Palace. Several core elders of the Taishaman were all shocked, as if their parents had died, and no one could believe that the news they heard was true. How was it possible? Hu Qinny didn't hold back. He crippled the Cold Plum Fairy and the Dancing Snow Fairy. Everyone believed this. Hu didn't make a mistake, and it was estimated that Elder Hu did not intend to leave anyone alive when he started, which was normal. However, how could a master of the Deshang stage be captured alive by a junior in the late Jidan stage? This was simply the biggest joke in the world. The problem was that this joke happened to Elder Hu of the Taishaman, which was a great disaster. It was definitely a disaster for the reputation of the Taishaman. Sect Master Li and several core elders could swear to heaven that they absolutely did not know what Hu Qinny did, and what Elder Hu did was definitely not instructed by them. But the problem was that if this was said, someone must believe it. The Taishaman had always been overbearing, and unreasonable things were not done once or twice. But generally, there was no definite evidence, and no one dared to easily lead the spear to the Taishaman. This time it was different. They were arrested on the scene, and there were also the Cold Plum Fairy and Dancing Snow Fairy as witnesses. The two Deshang stage masters of the Pure Yang Palace were present. Hu Qinny's apprentice, who he didn't know where to find, has explained everything. The irrefutable evidence was like a mountain, and it involved the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, which were no less than the Greatest Heaven sect. It was impossible to use force. The most embarrassing thing was that the Greatest Heaven sect had always insisted that their own elder who had been in seclusion in the sect for decades and had never taken a step out. Then, where did Elder Hu was captured alive, come from? A master of the Deshang stage was by no means so easy to impersonate, and there were more than thousands of people who knew Elder Hu in the world, and they couldn't deny it even if they wanted to. With a single mistake, the Taishaman became a shameful liar, and they still made a fool of themselves in front of all the Dao sect's cultivators. Maybe it was more than that. Because of the opening of the Hall of Eccentrics, many monster races also knew about such a thing, and maybe it would also spread to the demon race. For the Taishaman, this matter was simply a disaster for their reputation. Think about it. The elder of the Deshang stage of the Taishaman turned out to be the master of kidnapping the younger generation of other sect and extorting other people's secret manuals, and the Taishaman still defended such a person, and even covered for him. What did this mean? The Taishaman, who have always claimed to be the leader of the Dao sects, were they a den of thieves? Otherwise, how could such a thing happen? Today, it was Elder Hu who kidnapped and extorted the younger generation. Maybe tomorrow it would be Elder Wang, Elder Liu, or even Sect Master Li. And the sect even denied it for such a person, saying that he had been in seclusion for decades, saying that he had never stepped out of the sect. In this way, the Taishaman often claimed that there was an elder or a master who was in seclusion, and there was a major event outside. Maybe there was a shadow of the Taishaman in it. Today, the Taishaman claimed that Elder Hu was in seclusion, but Elder Hu went out to do this. Then did the previous masters who were in seclusion also find a reason to go out to do things? There were people in the Greatest Heaven sect who were in seclusion almost all the time, and there were people who had accidents outside. Many headless cases have not yet found the murderer, but now there was one more suspect target for everyone. Distinguishing from the outside? How to explain it? First, he had to explain this matter clearly. Why even the big sect like the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect couldn't get an honest explanation from the mouth of the Taishaman. So where did the other small sect go to find an explanation? This was the strategy of the three sects this time. On that day, the Lord of Tantai was furious and wanted to explain to the Taishaman, but Yang Chun stopped him a little and then proposed such a secret method. If the Taishaman were really open and above board, they would give up a Deshang stage elder to fulfill their reputation, then everything would be fine. Everyone would not chase after them. They could kill a Deshang stage elder of the Taishaman, but at the cost of 2 Jidan stage disciples being injured and losing their cultivation base, anyone would do it. The Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect and the Taishaman were in a cooperative and competitive relationship. On the surface, They were in harmony, but they didn't know how many times they had schemed against each other. This time, they were absolutely happy to kill a Dashang stage elder of the Taishaman. Moreover, even if the Taishaman were really willing to give up Hu Qianni, there would inevitably be some loss of reputation. This was still the most perfect situation for the Taishaman to deal with. In fact, everyone knew from the beginning that the Taishaman would never give up a Dashang stage elder so easily. A master of the Dashang stage, in any sect, was a top-level force. No sect would be willing to give up a master of the Dashang stage easily. Even the Taishaman were no exception. Otherwise, the Taishaman would not be willing to pay a high price from Yangchun for medicinal pills to heal their injuries. For this reason, they also gave several major sect generous compensation. But the more this was the case, the more despicable Hu Qianni was, and the more it would affect the reputation of the Taishaman. The more they defended Hu Qianni, the more unbearable the reputation of the Taishaman would be at the moment when the truth was announced. The development of the situation was as Yangchun expected. The Taishaman's tone was very firm in denying the matter, and they also used some people on the periphery to launch a round of publicity, which fell into the hands of Yangchun. Chapter 911. This matter couldn't be said that the Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect dug a pit for the Taishaman to jump into. It was the Taishaman who were arrogant and thought that they were the #1 sect of the Dao sects. Their high and mighty mentality determined that they were bound to stumble in such a matter. Whether it was the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect, or Chunyang Palace, the first note was issued in secret. Except for the 4 sect involved, the 3 sect did not announce a word to the public. It was the Taishaman themselves who wanted to create an atmosphere and create a general trend to lead the spearhead to Chunyang Palace, and to plant the moral seed for the future destruction of Chunyang Palace. They brought themselves into this huge, dirty water pit. The Taishaman took the initiative to make everything public to maintain their grand and upright image. Even when the 3 sect issued the second internal note, they still chose to make it public, and they were very sure that this matter was framed by people with ulterior motives, and it had absolutely nothing to do with the Taishaman. So, in the third note, the Blue Cloud sect of the Green Jade Immortal Island and Chunyang Palace collectively chose to publicly question, attach evidence, and ask the Taishaman to make an explanation for this. Those outsiders who knew the whole story from a fair standpoint had to say that the 3 sect of the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect, and Chunyang Palace had done their utmost. Originally, the Taishaman only needed to give a secret explanation to the 3 sect. It was not a big deal to compensate for some losses, expel Hu Qianni from the Taishaman, or deal with him according to the sect rules, and this matter would be over. However, the Taishaman did not put other people's good intentions in their eyes. Not only did they take the initiative to announce it, but they also chose to defend their own elder who had made a mistake. One wrong step, and finally led to the current situation of the Taishaman. No matter how they explained, even if they used the sect rules to deal with Hu Qianni at this time, or handed over Elder Hu's life to the 3 sects to deal with, they could not reverse the evil consequences caused before. The Taishaman did not have any objections to the way the sect master and a few core elders handled the matter from the beginning. But as the truth of the matter was further revealed, even the Taishaman began to have different opinions. The bigger the sect, the more power struggles there would be, and the more complicated the factions would be. Sect Master Li and several core elders had been in charge of the affairs of Taishaman. That was because they had basically never made any mistakes in the past. Under their leadership, Taishaman was thriving. Naturally, no one dared to say anything. Even if there were, it would be suppressed by the Taishaman disciples who had benefited from it. But now the decision of the sect master and the core elders had brought very serious consequences to the Taishaman. It had caused a devastating blow to the reputation of the Taishaman, and the impact would exist for decades, or even longer in the future. This made it impossible for some people who were unwilling to be suppressed to begin to move. Although in the current situation, the loss of a master of the Dashang stage could not cause much loss to the Taishaman in terms of strength, the loss of reputation was definitely not something that the Taishaman could make up for with 10 or 20 masters of the Dashang stage. When the Taishamen, who claimed to be the leader of the Tao sects, lost their morality and lost their righteousness, they were no longer qualified to tell others what to do. There began to be different voices in the sect, questioning the measures taken by the sect master and several core elders this time. Sect Master Li was originally angry by the previous news. Now he was having a headache about how to deal with the aftermath. At this juncture, the backyard of the sect was on fire again. The few who spoke were also Deshang stage elders. Each of them had such a large wave of power, and they were all people who competed with the existing core elders for the position. If it was before, Sect Master Li and several elders would definitely be able to suppress these thorns, but now it was not possible. Their decisions had brought irreparable losses to the Taishamen, and naturally, they did not have such strong confidence. The entire Taishamen Elders Council was in a mess. Some people wanted to discuss how to solve the current predicament first. Some wanted to hold certain people accountable, and some quietly won over other elders to strengthen their own momentum. The dignified Taishamen Elders Council had never been so absurd. After the news spread, some Taishamen disciples who were outside immediately felt that the eyes of the people around them had become a little different. Although there was still some awe, there was no sense of flattery, but there was an additional sense of inexplicable defense. It had to be said that this was the consequence of Elder whose plot to seize Yang Chen's alchemy secrets. If the upper beam was not straight, the lower beam would be crooked. The high and mighty elders of the Taishamen were like this, so the ordinary Taishamen disciples were certainly not much better. If it weren't for the huge strength of the Taishamen that people couldn't ignore, it was estimated that these Taishamen disciples outside would definitely be beaten by people. Compared with the chaos on the side of the Taishamen, the Chunyang Palace and the Blue Cloud sect of the Green Jade Immortal Island were in a good mood, waiting to watch the show. From the beginning, when the Taishamen spread the news and poured dirty water on Chunyang Palace and Yangchun, the three sect all tacitly responded with silence. It was not until the Taishamen vowed that elder who had been in retreat that the truth was announced. With years of experience in secret struggles, after hearing Yangchun talk about this small plan, the Lord of Tandai and Elder Shur looked at Yangchun as if they were looking at a monster. This kind of revenge was simply to kill the Taishamen. As long as the Taishamen accidentally jumped in, it would be a big stain that could never be washed away. With the two major sects' understanding of the Taishamen would definitely take the initiative to jump into this dirty water pit. Unexpectedly, Yangchun had been concentrating on alchemy, but he still had such a keen mind. No wonder the Chunyang Palace wanted to appoint Yangchun as the young palace master. It turned out that Yangchun really had this ability. No one could describe the happiness of the three sects' top officials now. Not to mention the Chunyang Palace, just the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, after so many years of struggle. Even if the two major sects did not suffer much, they did not take much advantage. Now, it was just the two Jidan stage juniors involved that made the Taishamen pay the price of a Deshang stage elder, but they also suffered immeasurable losses. How could people not be happy to celebrate? It seemed that everything was brought by Yangchun, this little guy. In the previous secret plane incident, the two major sects took advantage of the situation. Not to mention the benefits, they cleaned up the interior, consumed several Deshang stage masters of the Taishamen, and further improved their relationship with the Five Elements sect and the Chinquan sect. It could be said that Yangchun was the lucky star of the two major sects. Chapter 9:12. No one could refute this point. Counting the benefits that Yangchun brought to the two major sects, they could come to this conclusion. Blue Cloud sect Elder Hua's blood demon vine was helped by Yangchun. The eighth metal true secret art was discovered by Yangchun. The genius disciple Sun Qingxue was also seen by Yangchun. The income of the 100,000 mountains was brought back by Yangchun. The secret plane incident was also hinted by Yangchun. Even the dozens of corpses of the peak Yuanying stage, praying mantis brought back by Sun Qingxue, were discovered by Yangchun. The same was true for the Green Jade Immortal Island. Shi Shanshan's troubles were solved by Yangchun. The heart demon was overcome by Yangchun. The undersea elixir was slowly carried forward by Yangchun. The 100,000 mountains and the secret plane incident were also inseparable from Yangchen's shadow. Of course, the most important thing was that the 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill and the questioning inner heart pill were all from Yangchun. In recent decades, the strength of the two major sects has soared, and Yangchun was completely inseparable. Such an excellent junior. Even if they couldn't accept him into their sect, it was always a good thing to form a marriage alliance. What's more, Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue had already been secretly committed to Yangchun. Facilitating the marriage was not only a beautiful thing, but it was also good for the sect, killing two birds with one stone. No one would be stupid enough to refuse. Now, the people of the two major sects had two concerns. One was the current situation of the two women. Would Yangchun still hold the wedding as scheduled? The second was how effective Yangchun's appearance pill was. As for the Taishaman, let them worry about it. The previous wrong decision has already made them lose face. Next, they may be desperate, disregard the prestige and reputation accumulated before, and fight with the two major sects angrily. Or they would pull down their face to apologize and then pull out a high-level leader who is at least at the level of the Foreign Affairs Hall to take the blame for this wrong decision. No matter which method, in short, the Taishamen were unlucky. Even if it was a war, the two major sects were not afraid. Not to mention that the strength of the two major sects was already a little stronger than that of the Taishamen. Moreover, as early as the first note, the two major sects had been ready to fight. The most important thing was that the two sects occupied the name of righteousness and occupied the commanding heights of morality. The Taishamen had no reason to attack, which determined that they could never gain the upper hand when facing the two sects. After the Lord of Tantai arranged everything, he did not return to the Green Jade Immortal Island, but waited in the Chunyang Palace. In fact, except for the masters who had to return to the sect to take charge of the affairs, basically all the masters who came to the Chunyang Palace this time stayed in the Chunyang Palace. On the one hand, it was to prevent the Taishamen from launching a raid on the Chunyang Palace. On the other hand, they were collectively waiting for the release of Yangchun's appearance pill. Yangchun couldn't imagine how attractive the appearance pill was to the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, the two basically female-dominated sect. He just thought that he wanted to restore the appearance of his two fiancées, so he was refining it carefully. The reaction of the Taishamen was basically in Yangchun's guess, so he didn't have to consider the outside at all. Now, it was the right thing to concentrate on refining the appearance pill. Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue still took 10 portions of Lingji mushroom jade pill every once in a while. The meridians of their bodies were slowly improving, but the improvement was also limited. It could only be said that there was a steady improvement, but it was still a long way from the real repair. If it weren't for the two women worrying about their appearance, Yangchun would have already started to treat the two women. The appearance pill left by Fairy Chong, he was by no means so easy to refine. With the appearance of Fairy Chong, it was not known how many precious medicinal materials she had collected in the heavenly court. It must be known that those were the elixirs of the immortal world, which were more high quality than the elixirs of the mortal world. Naturally, her pill formulas were also extremely demanding and had very high requirements. From the perspective of medicinal materials, now Yangchun could only use the elixirs of the mortal world to refine the appearance pill. Even so, the effect would still be a lot worse than the elixirs of the heavenly court. However, it was absolutely possible to make the cultivators of the mortal world stay young forever in the mortal world. In terms of alchemy techniques, Yangchun had the reference of the Laojun pill scripture and the experience of his previous life. It was more than enough. Her ability to control fire was even more outstanding, and she was even stronger than Fairy Chang'e back then. Speaking of which, refining the appearance pill should be a piece of cake. But Yangchun still underestimated the importance of beauty for women. The complicated and cumbersome process of refining the appearance pill almost made people want to vomit blood. In Yangchun's understanding of the pill recipe, sometimes just to increase the perfection of the skin, Yangchun felt that no one would notice the slight effect. Fairy Chong, he added at least a dozen cumbersome steps and exquisite techniques in the pill recipe, which increased the difficulty of alchemy by at least 30%. It would have been fine if it was only this one time, but the problem was that this situation had occurred at least 40 times. Not a single mistake could be made in any small step, causing the overall difficulty of refining to increase by more than 10 times. And the time of alchemy had increased by 5 or 6 times. It would take at least half a year to refine this appearance pill. The matter in Taishaman was not over yet. Yangchen really did not have the mood to simplify these cumbersome steps. It was not a small project. Therefore, he used the technique of Fairy Chong, ease pill recipe step by step, and began the first refining of the appearance pill. If Fairy Chong knew about Yangchen's simplified idea, she would definitely climb out of the Immortal slaughter platform and give Yangchen a hard slap in the face. Fairy Chong, it did not know how much effort it took to optimize the appearance pill, which had a good effect to the current stage. Yangchen actually wanted to simplify the refining and weaken the effect of retaining youth. Damn it. Not to mention Fairy Chang'e. If the women waiting outside knew about it, it was estimated that Yangchen would not have a good end. Condemnation in words and in writing was probably a light punishment. During the period when the three sects sent 3 notes to Taishaman, Yangchen had been refining the appearance pill. Until the Taishaman were now in a mess and in chaos, Yangchen's appearance pill was finally released. As soon as he came out of the alchemy room, he saw the master of the palace with a group of people: Gao Yu, Gong Sunling, Shi Shanshan, Sun Qingxue. The 4 fiancés of Gao Yu, the Lord of Tantai, and Elder Hua were also on the side. Such a lineup directly scared Yangchen. What happened in Taishaman? Yangchen immediately asked subconsciously. With so many people gathered, apart from the changes in Taishaman, Yangchen could not think of any other reason to let these people wait at the door of the alchemy room. Is the appearance pill refined? To Yangchen's surprise, the Lord of Tantai, the island master of the Green Jade Immortal Island, who should be most concerned about the major events of Taishaman, asked the first sentence was actually the appearance pill. Chapter 9:13. Are you all waiting for the appearance pill? From the fiery eyes of other women, Yangchen saw some facts, but he still couldn't believe it. Of course, what do you think? Elder Hua grabbed the small jade bottle containing the appearance pill from Yangchen's hand, opened it directly, looked inside, and immediately frowned. Why are there only 2? Yangchen was only refining it for his 2 fiancés. Of course, he only refined 2. He didn't think much about this, and subconsciously followed this number. The 10,000 years elixir did not fall from the sky, and he had to save it. Obviously, this practice made the ladies headed by the Lord of Tantai and Elder Hua very unhappy, but they did not say much. 2 was 2, at least they had to see the effect first. Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan were checked again by Yangchen. After confirming that their injuries were stable, they each found a quiet room and took the medicinal pill. The effect of the medicine was not a matter of time. When the women were looking forward to the effect of the medicine, Yangchen was finally able to come to the side with the head of the palace and talk about the recent situation of the Taishaman. The Taishaman have bad intentions. It seems that they have the heart to destroy our sect. Listening to the head of the palace talking about the movements of the Taishaman, especially when he heard that some people vaguely pointed the spearhead to Chunyang Palace, Yangchen couldn't help but snort. There is news from the Wine Immortal House. There are already some unidentified masters gathering somewhere outside Meiqing Mountain. It seems that they want to do harm to our sect. The head of the palace nodded. The Wine Immortal secretly joined the Chunyang Palace, so that Chunyang Palace was not generally well informed about the news of the outside world. With the slightest movement, the news was immediately put in front of the head of the palace. Is Elder Jiu Xian cultivating well now? Yangchen had not seen the Wine Immortal for a long time. When he heard the head of the palace talk about the Wine Immortal House, he naturally asked. Thanks to you, he has now begun to retreat and intends to attack the threshold of the Deshang stage. When a master of the palace talked about the Wine Immortal, he immediately smiled more. Although the Wine Immortal only secretly joined the Chunyang Palace, with the help of the questioning inner heart pill, it seems that he is on the verge of crossing the tribulation. There will be another master of the Deshang stage in the Chunyang Palace. Although it was a secret, it was enough to make the head of the palace happy. In particular, if the Wine Immortal became a master of the Deshang stage, the Wine Immortal house would naturally rise, and the benefits would be a series. What are the Taishamen going to do now? The head of the palace did not say what the Taishamen had this time. Yang Chun asked anxiously. The third note was sent to the hands of the Taishamen for 10 days. The person has not come back, and there is no response from them. The head of the palace was not as anxious as Yang Chun. He was very calm. He couldn't blame Yang Chun. He had been in alchemy. He didn't know the news outside, and he didn't know how things had developed. Naturally, he was a little anxious. Hearing the words of the head of the palace, Yang Chun also calmed down. Suddenly, his heart moved, and he asked the head of the palace again, "How many masters are there? What realm? Are they still there?" "There are more than 400 people, including more than 80 Yuanying stage ancestors, and the rest are all in the late Jidan stage and peak Jidan stage." After thinking about it, the head of the palace replied, "However, it is said that there are still people who are rushing over there. They are all people from small sect and rogue cultivators." It was thousands of miles away from Meiqing Mountain. If there was a better flying magic weapon, it would only take a few hours to reach Meiqing Mountain. This was clearly a plan to make a move, waiting for the Taishamen to speak. There are no masters of the Deshang stage? Yang Chun still had some doubts. With dozens of hundreds of Yuanying stage ancestors, if they wanted to destroy the Chunyang Palace, it seemed that it was not enough. It must be known that there were 2 masters of the Deshang stage in Chunyang Palace. Sending so many Yuanying stage ancestors over was just like sending food. The whereabouts of the masters of the Deshang stage are difficult to grasp, and it is impossible for the people of the Wine Immortal house to find them. The head of the palace shook his head. He did not believe that the other party would not send a master of the Deshang stage. But the people of the Wine Immortal house obviously could not track the traces of the masters of the Deshang stage, unless the master deliberately showed up. Maybe it is the same trick again. There are a few great elders who have been in retreat in Taishamen for a long time. No one knows what they look like. When they make a move, they may appear on our side. Yang Chun knew a lot about the secrets of the Taishamen, and at this time, he immediately thought of this key point. The reason why the Taishamen have been dominating the mortal world, in addition to their own revealed strength, there are a large number of secret disciples scattered in various small sect and rogue cultivators. However, these were not the ultimate force. The ultimate force of the Taishamen was an unknown number of great elders. These great elders were all hibernating in the secret array in the depths of the Taishamen sect. Their strength had long been able to cross the tribulation and ascend immediately, but by relying on some mysterious array, they forcibly suppressed their cultivation base at the peak of the Deshang stage, not triggering the tribulation, hiding their cultivation base, only to secretly protect the Taishamen or to fight after encountering some enemies. These old guys who were extremely hidden were very powerful. If they really made a move, maybe Elder Wu Xiong before the tribulation was not necessarily the opponent of these old guys. These guys were loyal to the sect. Every time before they could ascend, they would volunteer to guard the sect for hundreds of years and then ascend. The masters of the Taishamen for tens of thousands of years were definitely a terrifying number. In fact, not only the Taishamen, but also the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect, and other major sects also had such great elders, but the number was not as many as the Taishamen, so the ultimate force was still a lot worse. If the Taishamen used these people, as long as one of them made a move, they could suppress Wang Yong and the Old Tree Demon, and maybe their lives would be in danger. But after using them, there were no consequences. Once these old guys made a move, they would soon trigger the tribulation, so they would not make a move easily. Only when the sect needed them would they use them. Once these people were really used, at that time, the Pure Yang Palace would be destroyed, but the greatest heaven sect would have a great elder who had been in seclusion for many years and finally broke through the bottleneck. Who could doubt the greatest heaven sect? It was a good calculation. Unfortunately, the Taishamen just said that Hu Qianyi was in retreat, and here it was said that Hu Qianyi was captured alive. Once this happened, it would not be so easy for the Taishamen to cover it up in the same way. So they delayed it until now and did not make a move. Just when Yang Chun and the head of the palace were discussing, there was a sudden commotion among the women, but Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue had already come out of the quiet room. Chapter 9:14. The ladies over there were only restless at the beginning, and then all calmed down. Those who could be here, the lowest cultivation base was at the level of the Jidan stage, and they would not be as startled as the ordinary women. Yang Chun could feel it without looking. Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue came out, and then he heard a sound of inhaling, and then the two women were surrounded by the women, and even their shadows could not be seen from the outside. For the effect of the appearance pill, Yang Chun would never doubt it. The daily maintenance of Fairy Chong, it was definitely a good thing that could make the female immortals of the heavenly court jealous to the point of vomiting blood. This appearance pill was definitely a top-notch magic weapon for women to maintain their beauty. Unfortunately, Yang Chen's impression of Fairy Chong, it was not particularly amazing. It couldn't be helped. No matter how peerless and graceful the beauty that was sent to the immortal executioner's platform was, she was still captured after experiencing a bitter battle. She was already injured and in a sorry state, so she didn't have the cold and arrogant demeanor of a fairy from the Moon Palace anymore. In the eyes of Yang Chun, Fairy Chong, he was also unworthy of the name. Because of this first impression, Yang Chun certainly did not have much expectation. At least in his eyes, those boring pill recipes that only increased the effect by 1%, but had to pay 100% of the hard work. This kind of pill was definitely good for mortals, but if he refined it again, he would definitely greatly simplify this pill recipe. Thinking like this in his mind, Yang Chun still wanted to see the actual effect. However, the women who surrounded the two women seemed to be a bit strange, standing there one by one, but not saying a word. It was really difficult to figure out what was going on. Oh my God, incredible. Just when Yang Chun thought that the most powerful women in the world had a collective hysteria, the women who surrounded the two women seemed to wake up from a dream and made a burst of exclamations. Yang Chun and the head of the palace looked at each other. The palace master saw Yang Chun looking over and turned his head at him, motioning him to come forward. After all, she was his fiancée. It was only right for him to go up and take a look. On the contrary, the palace master Zhang Jiao could not go directly. He could only stand here and wait quietly. On such an occasion, with the Lord Tantai and Elder Hua present, it was very impolite to probe with one's divine sense. Therefore, even if the head of the palace was curious, he did not dare to use his spiritual awareness easily. When Yang Chun walked over, he purposely made his footsteps a little heavier. It was also an indirect reminder to these seniors other than his fiancée. Sure enough, upon hearing Yang Chen's footsteps, the women spontaneously opened up a path for him, allowing him to easily walk to the two women who had just come out of the quiet room. The permanent appearance pill was effective. This was Yang Chen's first thought when he saw it. Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue had indeed restored their youthful appearance. The same cold and unparalleled, the same charming and lovely. No, there seemed to be some small differences. Looking closely, it seemed that the skin of the two women was slightly more delicate than in the past, and their figures looked slightly smoother. Of course, it was just a little change. In the eyes of Yang Chun, the two women were still the two women in his memory. There was no change. Looking at the two women, there should be no other changes, and their injuries did not deteriorate. However, the exclamation of the women just made Yang Chun a little uncertain, so he subconsciously reached out and grabbed the wrist of the nearest Sun Qingxue and began to carefully feel the pulse. Yang Chen's action caused the women around to smile, but Yang Chun still did not understand why the women exclaimed. Was it just because the two women became younger? In fact, without the permanent appearance pill, people with their cultivation base could achieve the same effect directly with some old elixirs. It was just that these elixirs were quite rare, but with the ability of these people in front of them, how precious elixirs could not be obtained with a few words. Sun Qingxue's pulse was all normal, except that her injured meridians were still maintaining the kind of injury. There was no other change. Yang Chun breathed a sigh of relief, as long as nothing happened. Then, he reached out to Shi Shanshan. In front of so many people, He was not at the point of using spiritual awareness to explore the bodies of the two women unscrupulously. Cold Plum Fairy Sher Shan Shan was a little resistant, especially in front of so many elders. But seeing that Yang Chun seemed to be very persistent, she hesitated a little and let Yang Chun hold her white wrist. Her face slightly blushed. Sher Shan Shan's skin also returned to the delicate feeling of her most youthful time. Holding it in his hand, the smooth feeling made Yang Chun sway slightly. When he just held Sun Qingxue, Yang Chun didn't care. He had always treated Sun Qingxue as a little sister and didn't have any thoughts. But now holding Sher Shan Shan, he had a different feeling from Sun Qingxue. In front of so many elders, it was not good. Yang Chen quickly suppressed the thoughts in his heart and concentrated on feeling the pulse. Fortunately, no one could see it. After a while, Yang Chen could finally be 100% sure that after Sher Shan Shan took the appearance pill, except for the recovery of her appearance, there was no effect on her injury. The appearance pill was the appearance pill. There was no side effect except to restore the appearance to its best moment. There was no other effect. In the eyes of Yang Chun, it was indeed a kind of medicinal pill with extremely uneven input and output. Those medicinal materials were enough to produce the same amount of questioning inner heart pill. After determining the effect, Yang Chun didn't understand why a group of Yuanying stage ancestors and masters of the Deshang stage made such an exclamation. Even his other two fiancés, Master Gao Yu and senior sister Gong Sunling, were no exception. He didn't understand it, but obviously it was not a good time to ask clearly. Didn't he see the hot eyes of the women as if they wanted to swallow him alive? Yang Chun was not a person who didn't know what to do. He knew what to do. The effect of this medicinal pill is barely okay. Yang Chun could only smile a little and give such an evaluation to the women. Barely okay? Sun Qingxue's master, Elder Hua Wanting, shouted directly in a tone that Yang Chun didn't expect. This is barely okay? Elder Hua was the first to jump out, followed by all the women, all looking at him like he was a monster. That kind of gaze made Yang Chun think of a beast who saw food without hesitation. This medicinal pill, I want one. The Lord of Tantai's words were more direct and domineering than Elder Hua Wanting. You name a price. As soon as the Lord of Tantai's voice fell, it attracted the same request. I want one too. I want one too. I want 3. In the face of this group of female porridge, Yang Chun looked inexplicable. This medicinal pill, so popular? Chapter 9:15. Yang Chun couldn't understand the craziness of the women at all. That's right, it was crazy. Even the Lord of Tantai, who could make the Dao sect tremble with a casual sentence, and Elder Hua, a master of the Deshang stage, were actually so popular with this medicinal pill that could only change one's appearance, but had no use for cultivation. There was no self-restraint of a master of the Deshang stage, and there was no demeanor of the master of the Green Jade Immortal Island. This situation was really unbelievable. How could this appearance pill make these high and mighty women so crazy? Just because it could change their appearance? In Yang Chen's opinion, the reason why Sher Shan Shan and Sun Qingxue could be a little better than before, in addition to the effect of the appearance pill, after the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill dissipated their spiritual power, they were soaked in the 4 C's mysterious coral liquid for dozens of days. There was also a certain reason. The more impurities in the body were removed, the better the natural skin performance would be, which was very normal. But it shouldn't be like this, right? Looking at the appearance of the women, if Yang Chun didn't agree, they wouldn't be able to get through this, so that Yang Chun couldn't refuse for a while. Cough. The master of the palace could understand the mentality of the women better than Yang Chun, and made 2 coughs in time, attracting the attention of the women. Everyone should calm down a little bit. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, the master of the palace coughed softly and said slowly, "It is not difficult to find Yang Chun for alchemy. The cooperation between our several sects is not a day or 2. In this way, let's listen to what medicinal materials are needed for this medicinal pill, and go back and prepare them first." Although the master of the palace did not explicitly say that Yang Chun would need to be paid for alchemy, he asked everyone to prepare the medicinal materials, which was already a brief reminder to all the ladies. Except for Yang Chen's fiancée, the other women immediately remembered the rules of asking for alchemy. They could not help but be stunned. Yang Chen was not an alchemist who would casually promise to help others to refine elixirs. He was the only fifth-grade alchemist in the world. According to the public announcement of Chunyang Palace, he would only refine elixirs once every 25 years, and the reward was very high. But since the head of the palace said so, Yang Chen would definitely give face and specially make a furnace for everyone. This was beyond doubt. Not to mention others, just Yang Chen's other two fiancés would definitely want it. At that time, Yang Chen would only need to refine it at the same time. As for the reward, Yang Chen could ask for whatever he wanted. Women could pay any price for their own appearance. Even women who were masters of the Deshang stage were no exception. At this time, everyone had consciously put aside things like rewards and only wanted the medicinal pills. Whatever Yang Chen wanted, it was up to him. In the eyes of the head of the palace, the performance of these women was like handing over a blank check with no upper limit to Yang Chen and Chunyang Palace. This kind of good thing. How could the head of the palace not be happy? What medicinal materials do you need? Quickly say it. Elder Hua urged without saying anything, I will prepare it right away. Ginseng, Polygonum multiflorum, Scutularia bicalensis, Panax nodo ginseng, Acanthopanax sinicosis, Angelica dihurica, white aconite, fongfong, these are enough. Yang Chen reported the medicinal materials he needed one by one, and the women, without exception, were engraved on the jade slips with their spiritual awareness. Of course, there were a few people who did not need to record. Gao Yu, Gong Sunling, Shi Shanshan, and Sun Qingxue. They did not have to worry about not remembering. With the medicinal materials that Yang Chen reported, the expressions on the faces of the women became more and more relaxed. They were all ordinary medicinal materials, and they were not things that people could not bear. But Yang Chen's words made all the women's hearts rise to their throats at the same time, for fear that Yang Chen would say something that could not be done. Fortunately, Yang Chen just added an explanation: the age needs to be a little longer. The age of the medicinal materials, of course, the older the better, at least in the eyes of the women. Needless to say, they would follow Yang Chen's additional explanation. Subconsciously, the Lord of Tantai asked, what kind of age is needed to achieve the effect of Shanshan and Little Shui? In one sentence, all the women's attention was brought back to Yang Chen, being stared at by so many women with high or low status, high or low cultivation base. Yang Chen was also the first time and immediately replied, quickly, the two medicinal materials are all 10,000 years old. Brush. The whole scene was strangely quiet. All the women seemed to have lost their interest in talking, and even their breathing stopped. The scene was so quiet that if a needle fell to the ground, the sound could be heard. After a while, Yang Chen heard a sound of cold air being sucked in. 10,000 years old. You are really impolite. The Lord of Tantai finally smiled bitterly. The island master couldn't help but smile bitterly. Even if she was the island master of the Green Jade Immortal Island, there was a certain pressure to come up with so many kinds of 10,000 years old elixirs. If it was for the questioning inner heart pill, there would be no scruples, but only for the appearance pill, the island master had to consider the ideas of other elders. What is the effect of a lower age? Elder Hua was also silent, but he still asked with hope, for example, 1,000 years old? This question was what all the women wanted to know. Everyone pricked up their ears and listened, for fear of missing a word. No one dared to speak, for fear of disturbing Yang Chen. In the face of such a situation, Yang Chen couldn't help but sigh a little. Perhaps when discussing how to deal with the Taishaman, he did not see them being so cautious and attaching importance to it. The specific effect is not very clear, but I estimate that it can only last for 100 years. Yang Chen thought for a moment before giving such a relatively cautious answer. What about after the effect of the medicine? Elder Hua asked again in a hurry, and there was a lot of joy on her face. It was not easy to get 10,000 years old, but it was much easier to find 1,000 years old. But there was still a key question. Elder Hua immediately asked, is there any effect when it is taken at that time? Not only Elder Hua, but the other women also had the same relieved expression. However, Elder Hua's question was definitely the most fundamental point that everyone cared about, and the women couldn't help but pay attention to it. Of course, it is useful, Yangchen replied without thinking. This kind of medicinal pill was originally for long-term beauty maintenance. There was no effect after taking one. But was it really worth it to use so many thousand years elixirs to refine the appearance pill? Yang Chen's answer directly detonated all the women present. If it weren't for their identity, maybe all the women would have cheered. But even so, everyone had a smile on their faces, and the temperature of the scene seemed to have risen by a few degrees collectively. Yang Chen, when can you open another furnace? The Lord of Tantai couldn't help it anymore, and he couldn't wait to ask this question. Chapter 9:16. This was obviously an additional alchemy opportunity for Yang Chen in addition to the once in 25 years. In this regard, the head of the palace seemed to have already expressed his position, so Yang Chen would not refuse. When the medicinal materials of the predecessors are gathered and the current Taishaman's matter is solved, this younger generation junior will immediately open a furnace of appearance pill. Yang Chen replied quickly, without any hesitation. It was natural for the medicinal materials to be gathered, and it was impossible to let Yang Chen put in the medicinal materials himself. As for solving the Taishaman's matter, this was even more necessary. Not to mention Chunyang Palace, the Green Jade Immortal Island, and Blue Cloud Sect also attached great importance to this. The reason why the Lord of Tantai and Elder Hua have been staying in Chunyang Palace was to facilitate communication and to guard against accidents. The subsequent actions of the Taishaman did not go beyond the expectations of the two major sects. Before the third note was issued, all kinds of spearheads were directed at Chunyang Palace. If it were not for the Lord of Tantai sitting here, maybe the other party would have already come to kill them. This was also the reason why Yang Chun and the head of the palace did not avoid the Lord of Tantai when discussing the current situation of the Taishaman. The conversation between the two basically belonged to the content that could be known by the Lord of Tantai. Chunyang Palace paid a price to buy information from the Wine Immortal House, which was a very normal transaction. Almost most of the sect had similar transactions with the Wine Immortal House. As for the questioning inner heart pill helping the Wine Immortal House to reach the Deshang stage, it was easier to explain. The questioning inner heart pill was the price of the transaction between the Chunyang Palace and the Wine Immortal House. Only such a price could be exchanged for such a thorough service from the Wine Immortal House. Speaking of which, those masters who gathered together did not rush to Chunyang Palace in one fell swoop and bring the disaster of extermination to Chunyang Palace. They should thank the Lord of Tantai and her team for staying in Chunyang Palace. Even the Taishaman had to weigh the consequences of attacking the Chunyang Palace at this time. If it was just the Chunyang Palace, it would not matter if it was destroyed. The Taishaman had laid the groundwork before and would not have any worries. However, it was another matter if they dared to attack the Lord Tantai. If they did not want to trigger a war between the three great sects, the Taishaman had to behave themselves and not act rashly. Now that the third wave of notes had been issued, the Taishaman no longer had a righteous cause. Naturally, the crisis had been resolved. Although Chunyang Palace was not powerless to resist, even if the other party came to kill them, they still had to be grateful for this kind of thing. Helping to refine a furnace of appearance pill was the best reward. This furnace of appearance pill, the master of the palace even thought about it. Except for the raw materials, there was no reward. On the one hand, it was to return the favor. On the other hand, it was advertising. Yang Chen did not know why the women were so crazy, but the master of the palace could be clear about it. It was estimated that no woman could get rid of the temptation of eternal youth, right? Especially in the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud Sect. These two sects were dominated by women. Even the Lord of Tantai and Elder Hua had used the appearance pill. Were they afraid that others would not buy it at a high price? The appearance pill was simply another huge profitable business for Chunyang Palace after the second grade inner sensing pill, and there was no need to worry about no repeat customers. One needed to be taken every 100 years. With so many women added up, the consumption was by no means an ordinary number. Naturally, Yang Chun, as an alchemist master, would definitely become the most popular alchemist master in the world. Which sect did not have female cultivators? As long as there were female cultivators, there would be a market. The appearance pill settled the female cultivators, the second grade inner sensing pill, and the questioning inner heart pill settled all the cultivators. Was there a more powerful alchemy sect than Chunyang Palace? Even in the heyday of Danding's sect, it was impossible for so many sects to be eager at the same time, right? The women who were assured were naturally happy, and all began to send people to collect medicinal materials. With the promise of Yang Chun, after no longer worrying about the appearance pill, everyone's focus returned to the situation of Taishaman this time. How will Taishaman deal with it this time? Elder Hua had been waiting for the news to come back, but now it had just been 10 days since the note was sent to Taishaman, and there was no news feedback. Everyone could only wait. I am afraid that several high-level Taishaman will pay the price for this. The Lord of Tantai, as the sect master of the Green Jade Immortal Island, naturally knew how to minimize the loss when encountering this kind of thing, and also to maintain the reputation of the sect. It can only be said that he could only take out one or two important people, let them take the blame, and then resolve the matter. Hu Qianni, who was captured alive, would definitely be unable to escape death. It was impossible for Taishaman to be thick-skinned enough to take Hu Qianni back. He was destined to be dealt with by the Three Sect to quell the anger of the Three Sect. It was only a pity that the life of a master of the Dashang stage was only exchanged for the cultivation base of two Jidan stage juniors. It was really a loss. It was just that the previous reneging, it was estimated that a heavyweight would be introduced to let him admit that he concealed the facts without the consent of the sect, take the blame, and step down to accept the punishment of the sect rules. And then Taishaman would pay a certain amount of compensation to the Three Sect, thus ending the matter. The punishment of the sect rules could not be too light, at least the level of abolishing the cultivation base. Otherwise, it would be difficult to stop the mouth of the world. As the number one sect in the Dao sects, it was necessary to have the style and demeanor of the number one sect in the Dao sects. And to deal with their own people, they could not be soft. The reputation that had been damaged, of course, could only be made up for bit by time, and the credibility of Taishaman was re-established. This was a long process, and the effect would not be seen in a short time. In any case, Taishaman could be said to have suffered a heavy loss this time. The life of a master of the Dashang stage, a heavyweight at the elder level, was abolished, and the reputation of the sect was discredited. This time, the blow to Taishaman was no less than that of the Mountain Gate explosion that year. They just didn't know which guy was unlucky and would be pushed out to be the scapegoat. It was estimated that it would be a guy who failed in the struggle, but as long as it was a struggle, there would be losses. The internal losses of Taishaman were far more than what was seen outside. Speaking of which, the two major sects were already very satisfied. They had been fighting with Taishaman for so long, and they really had the upper hand with Yang Chun these few times. The secret plane incident was counted as the first time, and this time was the second time. For the result of this time, the two major sects were also unspeakably satisfied. That's the only way. Yang Chun was a little disappointed. Although he knew that the analysis of the Lord of Tantai was right, and the situation would basically develop in this direction, he still felt unwilling. His two fiancées were hurt like this, and he wanted to solve it so easily. Wasn't it too beautiful to think about it? What else do you want? Although Elder Hua was fiery, he was also a person who knew the severity of things. Listening to the disappointed tone of Yang Chun, he couldn't help but ask angrily. It's already like this, and he was still not satisfied. What else did he want? Chapter 9:17. Yang Chun looked up at the crowd, turned to the master of the palace, and then turned to Elder Hua. After a glance, his eyes finally stayed on the Lord of Tantai. The Lord of Tantai immediately realized that Yang Chun had something important to say. With a wave of his hand, the Lord of Tantai told her followers, "You all retreat first." With the example of the Lord of Tantai, how could Elder Hua not know what to do? He also waved his hand to dismiss the people around him. Only the master of the palace, the Lord of Tantai, Elder Hua, and Yang Chun were left on the scene. Even the four fiancés of Yang Chun retreated and went to Gao Yu's courtyard to talk. The master of the palace, the lord of Tantai, and Elder Hua had a very tacit understanding, and then focused their eyes on Yang Chun. There is no one else now. Elder Hua said quickly, this old body can fully represent Sect Master Lu. Yang Chun, if you have something to say, just say it. I can't let the Taishaman get away with it so easily. Yang Chun reiterated his thoughts again. It's just a waste of Elder Hu and a scapegoat. It's not enough. What good idea do you have? When the Lord of Tantai talked about business, it was unspeakably calm. Isn't there news from the Wine Immortal house that there is a group of masters gathering thousands of miles away from Meiqing Mountain? A sneer appeared on Yang Chen's face. 70 or 80 Yuanying stage ancestors and hundreds of Jidan stage masters. I think even the Taishaman will be distressed, right? Listening to Yang Chen's words, the three decision-makers suddenly began to ponder. Everyone basically knew the existence of this group of people. The Lord of Tantai and Elder Hua were also guarding against this group of people attacking the Chunyang Palace. So they stayed, but they had not thought about eradicating these people. Everyone knew that these people were the party of the Taishaman. If they were destroyed, it would definitely cause a counterattack by the Taishaman. They could have made the Taishaman pay a certain price, but they would have to face the anger of the Taishaman at any time, which was somewhat inconsistent with the original plan. Everyone was estimating the reaction of the Taishaman after doing this, and the wider implications that it might bring. No one thought that Yang Chun would be so bold. In addition to taking the life of a Deshang stage elder and abolishing another elder-level master, he even wanted to kill this group of people. However, this also reflected Yang Chen's concern for Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue. Daring to hurt their people, Yang Chun not only wanted bloody revenge, but also wanted to implicate them. This thought was really rare. At least the Lord of Tantai and Elder Hua felt that their disciples did not choose the wrong person. So many masters. Isn't it too exciting for the Taishaman? The Lord of Tantai hesitated for a moment and said slowly, Taishaman? Yang Chun suddenly pretended to be confused and asked, what does this have to do with the Taishaman? Among these people, which one is from the Taishaman? The three decision-makers were stunned, and then all reacted. These people were not disciples of a small sect that was unknown. They were rogue cultivators. What did they have to do with the Taishaman? Even if they were all dead, it would not be the turn of the Taishaman to jump out and point fingers, right? The Taishaman had arranged a lot of spies outside the sect, but there was also a fatal flaw. That was, if these people were lost, the Taishaman had no reason to make irresponsible remarks. In the past, no one dared to move, and they didn't know which of these people were secretly arranged by the Taishaman. But now that this group of people has jumped out, it would be a pity if they didn't eat the fat meat that was sent to their mouths. In fact, this time the gathering of the masters was quite secret. All the people in dozens of miles around the gathering place were killed, and it should not be discovered. It had to be said that those people were also unlucky. It happened that several disciples of the Wine Immortal house saw several different masters passing by in different directions, and it seemed that the goal was that area. The people of the Wine Immortal house felt strange. After several high-level analysis and summary, several disciples of the Wine Immortal house were sent to that area to inquire about the news. However, under the intentional blocking of the news by the Yuanying stage ancestors, the result was naturally that they didn't return. The loss of the disciples also made the people of the Wine Immortal house aware of the abnormality. They sent a master who was proficient in stealth to approach within a few miles, and found the gathering of the masters. At this time, whether it was the Taishaman or the masters themselves, they did not know that they had been exposed. This news was sent directly to the Chunyang Palace by the Wine Immortal house, and only one copy was sent to the Chunyang Palace. There was no wind at all in the other sect. Even the Lord of Tantai and Elder Hua were informed by the palace master. Originally, they were just guarding against these people and did not intend to take them out. But now that Yang Chun mentioned it, it made the three people wake up like a dream. If this group of people were taken out, the Taishaman would probably cry even when they fell asleep. It's hard to say. The palace master thought of something and frowned. There must be a reason to do it, right? Without a name, isn't it going to be criticized by people? The Taishamen want to use this to get rid of the evil. What should we do? How can there be no reason? Yang Chun suddenly laughed. The captured elder who did not use the power of the sect this time. He privately gathered this group of desperados. In addition to wanting to get the secret books of the disciples, he also wanted to seize the Chunyang Palace's Meiqing mountain industry. After Elder who was arrested, he gave up these people, so the Chunyang Palace could only do it for self-protection. How about this reason? To be honest, it's not good. Elder Hua shook his head directly on the side and gave a disdainful evaluation, but he still added, however, it should be enough to deal with the Taishamen. Elder Hua's words made the 4 people present laugh. In fact, if we can kill them without anyone knowing, even if the Taishamen ask, we can also say that we don't know anything about it. We don't admit that we have done it at all. What can a Taishamen do? Yangshan also laughed a few times and then added a few words. Without anyone knowing? Difficult. The Lord of Tantai frowned and shook his head directly. I suspect that there is at least one old guy in there. It's hard to say if we can make him stay. The old guy mentioned by the Lord of Tantai was also the ultimate force of the Taishamen that Yang Chun knew, the dormant Supreme Elder. Since the other party planned to destroy the Chunyang Palace, they had naturally been prepared for a long time. It was normal for 1 or 2 Supreme Elders to appear. If they wanted to keep these people alive, the Blue Cloud Sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island would also have to use one of their own Supreme Elders. Anyway, the Supreme Elders who took action afterward would definitely ascend. As long as they could kill these 70 or 80 Yuanying stage masters, the 2 major sect would not lose out. Maybe this younger generation, Junior, has some ways. Yangshan once again said something that made everyone a little surprised. Chapter 918. Do you have a way? The Lord of Tantai's eyes suddenly lit up, but at the same time, there was also a deep fear hidden in it. If the Taishamen used those old guys, few people could compare with those guys in terms of force. Unless the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud Sect also sent out their sect treasures. Even so, it could only be said that everyone was evenly matched and maintained the situation of not winning and not losing. However, if he wanted to kill someone without making a sound, it would definitely cause people to be fearful. Today, the people who could kill the Taishamen, tomorrow they could kill the people of the Green Jade Immortal Island or the Blue Cloud Sect. The Lord of Tantai could not help but be afraid. Think about it. The masters of the Deshang stage could be killed at any time and anywhere. How terrifying was that? The Lord of Tanai looked at Yangshan with different eyes because of this. However, now that Yangshan was on his own side, if Yangshan could really kill a great elder of the Taishamen without anyone knowing, it would make the Taishamen more heartbroken than killing dozens of Yuanying stage masters. This great elder alone was equivalent to 1/10 of the strength of the Taishamen. Yang Chun naturally knew how shocking his words were, so he immediately explained with a smile, the predecessors may be curious. How did this younger generation junior catch Hu Qianyi alone? Didn't Wang Yong and Gue Shanyu do it together? Elder Hua was shocked when she heard the words. Hu Qianyi was caught by Yang Chun alone. She always thought that it was the 2 masters of the Deshang stage of the Chunyang Palace who teamed up to catch Hu Qianyi, but now she knew that there were other secrets. The Lord of Tantai also had some doubts. Wang Yong and Gue Shanyu had just been promoted to the Deshang stage for less than 100 years, but Hu Qianyi was a veteran Deshang stage master, at least in the middle and late stages. It was obviously impossible for him to be caught alive by 2 people in the early Deshang stage. However, the truth was right in front of her, and she had no choice but to believe it. Only now did he know that it was Yang Chun who did it. This was more shocking than the 2 Deshang stage masters teaming up. A Jidon stage junior capturing a master in the middle and late Deshang stage. That was not a dream, but unrealistic. But the master of the Pure Yang Palace nodded silently on the side and admitted all this. Chunyang Palace was now a partner of the 2 major sect. It was impossible for them to lie about this kind of thing. How did you do it? The island master couldn't help but ask. Even she herself didn't realize that there was a little more trembling in her questioning voice. Junior was fortunate enough to obtain the recipe for a type of cultivation dispersing pill. Yang Chun answered truthfully, and it seemed that this was not convincing enough, and added another sentence, "It is very overbearing. Crushing the medicinal pill, it can silently make the Deshang stage master suffer, and within a dozen breaths, it can make their spiritual power dissipate." Hu Qin's situation was seen by the Lord of Tantai and Elder Hua, and it was indeed the appearance of his spiritual power dissipating. Not only Hu Qin, but even Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue were the same. However, the situation of the two women was different. The spiritual power dissipated, and it would not cause further injuries to the meridians, but it was a blessing in disguise. In this way, it was estimated that the two women were affected by Hu Qin. When Yang Chun dealt with Hu Qin, the two women were also poisoned by this kind of medicinal pill. This process was reasonable. Otherwise, with Hu Qin's ability, if he could control the spiritual power of the two women so accurately, the meridians would not be hurt like that. Is this kind of medicinal pill so powerful? Elder Hua also had some color in her face. A master of the Deshang stage could dissipate their spiritual power in a dozen breaths. How could this be stopped by a general master of the Deshang stage? However, this could also explain why Yang Chun captured Hu Qin unscathed. With this kind of medicinal pill, not to mention one Hu Qin, it was estimated that even 10 of him would not be his opponent. Even if they didn't think of it, how could others think of it? It is powerful, but the raw materials for alchemy are very precious. It needs the bones of the dragon race, and it must be the bones of the poisonous dragon. Yang Chun shook his head directly. "I have only collected 3 sets of them all over the world and refined 3 medicinal pills. I can't take out more." Yang Chun repeatedly stressed that there were only 3, but it made everyone feel relieved. There was no way this kind of thing was colorless and tasteless. No one knew when they would be hit. It was simply a nightmare to be on guard all the time. The medicinal materials needed to use the bones of the dragon race, which made everyone feel a lot more relieved. The dragon race had long disappeared from the world. Where could they find the bones of the dragon race? Yang Chun has been in the East China Sea for a period of time, looking for underwater elixirs. Maybe he could find some dragon bones by chance, which was normal, but to say that Yang Chun had countless dragon bones, they wouldn't believe it even if they were beaten to death. Yang Chun said that there were only 3, and now everyone believed it a little. The bones of the dragon race, and it must be the bones of the poisonous dragon. How could it be so easy to get it? Such a strong medicinal effect. It seemed that only the medicinal pills refined from the bones of the poisonous dragon were possible. Ordinary medicinal materials, even if they were 10,000 years old, how could they have such a strong effect? One was used, and there are 2 more? The Lord of Tantai asked calmly. "I used 2. The younger generation junior first tested the effect." Yang Chun replied with a smile. "The second one was used to deal with Hu Qin. Is there an antidote for this medicinal pill?" Elder Hua immediately discovered the problem. Yang Chun used one to test the effect, but he was fine, and he was also fine when he dealt with Hu Qin. There must be an antidote, otherwise it couldn't be explained. There's an antidote, but it is very troublesome to refine. This younger generation junior skill is not enough. It will take at least 20 years of hard work. Yang Chun nodded and replied. This answer also made the Lord of Tantai and Elder Hua take a breath of cold air. Yang Chun's lack of skill was a shortcoming, which no one could help. If it took 20 years to refine the antidote, wouldn't it mean that Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue would be such a waste for 20 years? However, after thinking about it, it was not the case. The injuries of the 2 women, if they could recover within 20 years, it would already be good. They didn't have the physical foundation of a master of the Deshang stage, and they couldn't even bear a strong medicinal effect. It seemed that in this way, everyone had nothing to worry about. There was only one pill left in Yang Chun's hand. This time, he used it and solved the Teichman group. From then on, there would be no more worries. There was no need to consider the risks in the future, so everyone's interest naturally turned to the matter in front of them. With such a medicinal pill, it was indeed possible to make this group of people disappear without being noticed. However, The other party was a master who was about to ascend. How could they hide from the exploration of his spiritual awareness and get close to the medicine? Chapter 919. How did you use the medicine without being poisoned yourself? Elder Hua was more curious about this. Yangchen was obviously fine. Could it be that there was an antidote? As long as the whole body is sealed with beeswax and the medicine does not invade. Yangchen lied without hesitation. Elder Hua suddenly understood, sealing the whole body, not breathing, and not contaminated with the outside world's breath. For cultivator, it was indeed a very easy thing. The only difficulty was that it was more troublesome to get close. The great elders of the Taishaman who were now dealing with were more powerful than the other. It was not so easy to hide from them. However, since Yangchen could hide from Hu Qianni, maybe there was really a good way to get close to these people without being noticed and then drug them. This younger generation junior was lucky enough to get a magic weapon that can shield the spiritual awareness. Yangchen smiled and set his own trump card, reassuring the two masters as long as we can get within 100 feet, the effect of the medicine can quickly play a role. It's not a big deal. We just have to wait a little longer. With this guarantee from Yangchen, it seemed that it was not so difficult to deal with those people. A group of masters who had lost their spiritual power, even if they were at the peak Deshang stage and were about to ascend. So what? They could casually send a junior in the foundation stage to take care of them all. Everyone's spirit was lifted. Now it was not a question of whether it was possible or not, but how to do it more secretly, so that the Taishaman had nothing to say. Generally speaking, this kind of thing could be dealt with by denying it. You said that a lot of your masters died there. We don't know. The gathering of these masters by the Taishaman this time was a secret operation. It was normal for the Chunyang Palace not to know. No one could say that something happened thousands of miles away from Meiqing Mountain, and the Chunyang Palace would be responsible. As for the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, that was even more nonsense. The sphere of influence of the two great sects was overseas, while the other was tens of thousands of miles away. How could they kill a supreme elder of the Taishaman sect silently? The Taishaman could not slap themselves in the face and say that these people were here to deal with Chunyang Palace. Otherwise, they would not be able to explain to Taoism. He had no choice but to swallow this grievance in silence. There was no reason to blame Chunyang Palace. Moreover, with the strength of Chunyang Palace, it was impossible for them to do this. Even if the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect were added, it was impossible to do it so secretly. Even without any movement, dozens of Yuanying stage masters and an unknown number of elders were killed. Now that something had happened, the Taishaman could only look for suspects everywhere. Just like the last time when a mountain gate was destroyed, they still couldn't find a culprit. Although it seemed that Chunyang Palace was the most suspicious, the Taishaman had no evidence, and they would not believe that Chunyang Palace could do this. If Chunyang Palace really had such strength, why would it be necessary to unite with the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect? It would be enough to uproot the Taishaman sect directly. Anyway, the three sects only needed to insist that they didn't know anything afterwards. Since the Taishaman were arranged secretly, then they should check whether their own people had leaked the secret. The Lord of Tantai, Elder Hua, and the head of the palace carefully discussed the causes and consequences, and even simulated the possible situations after the event. They felt that there were no flaws, so they decided. In this case, I still have to trouble Yangchen to make a trip. The Lord of Tantai said to Yangchen with a pleasant expression. Yangchen had medicinal pills and a magic weapon to hide and shield his spiritual awareness. He was the best candidate to implement this plan. If it was someone else, no one would dare to rest assured. The overbearing medicinal effect alone would make people flinch. The understanding of that kind of medicinal pill, except for Yangchen, who else could be clearer? It could only be said that Yangchen had to work hard again. After we have arranged it, let's start. Elder Hua also had the same idea. He told Yangchen, thought about it, and added, pay attention to safety. If things can't be done, then it is important to get out of here first. We will keep their lives for the time being and take it next time. Anyway, we have already made a profit this time. I don't want little Xue to be a widow before she gets married. Elder Hua said it directly, but the meaning of concern was not concealed. Now Yang Chun was her son-in-law. Even if it was for the sake of son Qingxue, she had to consider Yang Chen's safety. I understand. Yang Chun bowed and saluted. No matter what, he had to express the concern of the elders. After that, the Lord of Tanai and Elder Hua left Xunyang Palace with their people and returned to their respective sect. In the current situation, the Taishaman did not dare to risk everything to destroy Xunyang Palace. Xunyang Palace was not in danger of being destroyed for the time being. There was not much need for them to stay here. It was just the right time to go back. They could also put on a show in their respective sect, so that the Taishaman would not suspect them. In the final analysis, they needed to have an alibi. Since this matter could be done by Yang Chun alone, there was no need for them to gather masters with great fanfare. They could do what they needed to do. If the Taishaman still made trouble without reason, it would just give the three sect another excuse to attack. As for Yang Chun, of course, he was retreating to refine medicinal pills, refining healing medicinal pills for his two fiancées, and, at the same time, refining the appearance pill for the women. Just taking advantage of this time, when Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue had an accident, the name of the appearance pill would also be spread out. Presumably, there would be countless female cultivators coming. All parties seemed to have arranged everything, just waiting for Yang Chun to make a move. The news from the drunken Immortal house also kept coming. Those masters seemed to have quietly gathered there and never left. Of course, this did not rule out that the people of the Wine Immortal house did not find the other party's traces of leaving. The masters of the Peak de Shang stage could take everyone away without being noticed by anyone with a space magic weapon. No one would find out. In the view of the head of the palace, Yang Chun would sneak over and see. If the person was there, he could make a move. If the person was not there, then he would sneak back and nothing would happen. Anyway, the biggest loss was that Yang Chun would make a wasted trip. It was not worthwhile to lose Yang Chun because of greed. Yang Chun also understood the good intentions of the head of the palace. However, he knew that those people were still in the same place, and among them, there was a master of the Peak de Shang stage who was on the verge of ascending. It must be the great elder of the Taishaman who intended to make a move. The Taishaman still did not dispel the idea of destroying the Chunyang Palace, but the sect was still weighing it. The powerful spiritual awareness of the three purities secret art had already extended to that area, and even the great elder of the Taishaman could not hide. The Lord of Tantai's presence and the internal quarrels of the Taishaman gave Yang Chun enough time. This time, the Taishaman were destined to lose more masters. He didn't know what kind of heartache the Taishaman would feel after these people were gone. Chapter 920. Yang Chun was alone, hiding under the ground, relying on the sea-pouring jasper cup to wrap the shuttle, and quickly approached the place where the group of people gathered. It was a very secluded, small valley, surrounded by cliffs and inaccessible. There was no spiritual energy here. It was very desolate, and basically there was no one in the surrounding hundreds of miles. The people of the Wine Immortal house only judged that this group of people was in this area, and the error range was within 100 miles. However, they didn't know the specific location. They even sent a few disciples who disguised themselves as passers-by. All of them were silently killed. So the Wine Immortal house didn't send people in later. They just put a group of people in the surrounding directions and stared at the people who came out from this direction. Until now, the people of the Wine Immortal house have not found anything unusual. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, because it was getting closer and closer, had already figured out the cultivation base of these people. The most powerful was a master at the Peak de Shang stage who was on the verge of ascension. This guy had a mysterious power that suppressed his own strength to the Peak de Shang stage and blocked the arrival of the tribulation. This mysterious power should be the secret suppression strength formation of the Taishaman. In fact, the cultivation base of these people has exceeded the limit of triggering the tribulation. This formation could suppress their strength to about 70%, so their peak strength could be at least 50% stronger than Wu Xiong before his ascension. When Wu Xiong met them at that time, he could only escape. However, Without the baptism of the wind tribulation, after all, it was impossible to achieve a qualitative change, and he was still a step away from the cultivation base of the human immortal. This great elder seemed very ordinary in the crowd. If it wasn't for Yang Chen's spiritual awareness that could clearly mark his position, the average person would not be able to detect his existence at all. This old fellow hid in a corner, sitting cross-legged, not talking and not moving, but the so-called Yuanying stage ancestors who came back and forth around him didn't seem to see him, as if this person didn't exist at all. These people were also some people who suddenly gathered together, and there seemed to be a lot of people who didn't know each other. Many people were talking to each other and seemed very relaxed. Most cultivators, unless it was necessary, were generally unwilling to stay in the space carried by others. Even when Yang Chen brought some experts out, he would try his best to stay on the ship, allowing everyone to move freely without confining them to the space. The purpose of doing this was to make everyone feel more comfortable and not feel suffocated in the small space. Secondly, it was to give everyone a sense of equality so that they wouldn't misunderstand that they had to stay in someone else's space to cultivate. This group of Taishamen also had the same idea, so they were scattered in this valley. The valley itself was extremely hidden, and there were dozens of Yuanying stage masters, plus the Great Elder. It was basically impossible for outsiders to approach. At least, that's what they thought, so they didn't have to hide in a person's spatial magic treasure to keep themselves hidden. But it was also because of this that Yang Chen had a fatal opportunity to plot against them. Yang Chen was now more than 1,000 miles away from them, and with the speed of the shuttle, he could arrive in less than an hour. However, Yang Chen did not dare to speed up. The unknown Great Elder had a strong cultivation base, and he might be able to detect a little bit of it. Within 100 miles, Yang Chen was even more cautious and moved forward at the slowest speed. Anyway, this group of people would not leave within a day or two. Even if it took 2 days to escape the 100 miles, Yang Chen was willing, as long as he was not discovered by the old guy in advance. Yang Chen couldn't help but be cautious. At the realm of the old guys, their spiritual awareness was already sensitive to the point of no return. Even if there was the sea-pouring jasper cup, he had to be careful and cautious, and must not fall short of success. Although these old guys had a high cultivation base, they were also very cautious. It must be known that as long as they made a move, they would almost certainly trigger the heavenly tribulation, so under normal circumstances, they would not easily make a move. Once they found something wrong, they would definitely escape. At this point, Yang Chen never wanted his negligence to cause the other party to leave. Only killing 70 or 80 Yuanying stage masters could not dispel the hatred in Yang Chen's heart. Only this Great Elder could make the Taishamen really feel pain. It took almost 3 hours of slow and careful travel, and Yang Chen was close to within 10 miles. At this distance, if he wanted to release the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill, it should be said that it was enough, but he was afraid that the direction of the wind was not right, and the other party was hidden in a valley, so the medicine chi could not diffuse over. In order to avoid falling short of success, Yang Chen still wanted to be on the safe side, and the distance was a little closer. It took another hour, and Yang Chen sneaked underground to the edge of the valley, which was about 100 feet away from the group of people. At this time, Yang Chen made a move, and it could be 100% guaranteed that the medicine chi would definitely be concentrated in this valley and would no longer drift out. Just as he was about to pinch the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill in the ground, Yang Chen suddenly stopped his movements, converged the aura of his whole body, and stayed motionless in the same place. The Great Elder, who no one cared about, suddenly frowned, and his eyes swept in the direction of Yang Chen. He didn't know what he had found, and he had been staring in this direction. A powerful spiritual awareness quietly drilled directly from the ground, almost turning over the surrounding ground. Yang Chen launched the sea jasper cup. His whole body was like a dead thing, and he didn't move. The crazy spiritual power brushed back and forth at least 10 times, and it seemed that he was unwilling to retreat. And the old fellow's gaze finally retracted, and he returned to the posture of sitting on the ground with half-squinted eyes. this series of movements. None of the surrounding Yuanying stage and Jedon stage cultivators found out, and they were still cultivating in the same place, making friends with each other. Just at the moment when the old fellow retracted his spiritual awareness, Yang Chun crushed the wax pill in the ground. A medicine chi began to spread silently to all sides, slowly seeping out from the ground and dispersing in the surrounding air. In order to avoid being discovered by the Great Elder, Yang Chun didn't even use a bai to expel the poison for himself at this time, allowing the medicinal power of the pulse-calming powder medicinal pill to distribute throughout his body, and then his spiritual power quickly dissipated. The people over there also didn't have the slightest difference, doing what they should do. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, the Great Elder, sitting on the ground, suddenly seemed to notice something and stood up abruptly. However, he didn't control his strength, and his body bounced directly from the ground, causing a lot of movement. Chapter 921. The surrounding experts didn't know that there was someone in that corner. Suddenly, everyone was shocked to find that there was a figure jumping up, and there was a lot of noise, and they were all shocked. Countless spiritual awareness swept over and easily found the figure of the Great Elder. Several Yuanying stage masters knew it in their hearts. They may have been instructed before leaving, and immediately realized that this must be the mysterious master, the main force used to deal with Wang Yong and the old tree demon. Before the gathered masters attacked, several Yuanying stage masters who knew the inside story immediately stopped the people's intention to start. The leading Yuanying stage ancestor immediately bowed to the old man and said, "Greetings to the Great Elder." The other disciples hurriedly followed the leading Yuanying stage master and bowed down, not daring to raise their heads. The Great Elder, the mysterious master of the dragon. How could he appear here? We have been plotted against. The Great Elder had already noticed that something was wrong and hurriedly reminded them, but at this time, it was too late. Plotted against? The leader was startled and immediately discovered that he couldn't use his spiritual power anymore. Moreover, he hadn't even realized it. Suddenly, the leading Yuanying stage ancestor's cold sweat dripped out. When was it plotted against? How come even the Great Elder didn't know? Although the spiritual power couldn't be raised, everyone's spiritual awareness cultivation base was still there. But no matter how everyone used their spiritual awareness to explore, they couldn't detect any clues. The Great Elder's spiritual awareness brushed over and over again in the valley, especially in the direction where Yang Chen stayed. He did not let it go, but what he could not understand was that he could not detect the existence of anyone. The cold sweat on his forehead gurgled down, but the Great Elder didn't bother to wipe it. He hadn't sweated for many years, and even the Great Elder himself didn't know. What kind of expert is here? The Taishaman do things. Please make it convenient for your excellency. The Great Elder's spiritual awareness exploration failed, and he just felt suspicious and shouted in the direction. Just when the Yuanying stage masters and Jedon stage masters were puzzled, a figure suddenly appeared slowly 100 feet away from the direction of the Great Elder. The blue jade blood phantom vine had already pierced into Yang Chen's blood vessels in a place that no one could see, and it quickly detoxified the pulse-calming powder medicinal pill for Yang Chen. Yang Chen's spiritual energy also quickly returned to his body. Was there really someone? Looking at the sudden appearance of Yang Chen, the group of people suddenly felt a chill. At this moment, all of them had lost all of their spiritual power. Whether they used their magic treasures or ran away, they had no spiritual power to support them. This person who had suddenly appeared in front of them had practically dictated their life and death. He is Yang Chun from Chunyang Palace. As Yang Chun stepped forward, someone finally recognized Yang Chen's identity. All of a sudden, all the experts were scared out of their wits. They gathered here to destroy Chunyang Palace, and everyone knew this purpose. They didn't do it because the sect hadn't asked them to do it yet. It was estimated that the Lord of Tantai was in Chunyang Palace, and they were afraid of making too many enemies at the same time. Now, their target unexpectedly appeared here, and they lost all of their spiritual power at the same time. What happened, and what was going to happen, could almost be completely guessed. We are here, absolutely without malice. Please don't misunderstand, Grandmaster Yang. The leader of the Yuanying stage masters almost immediately made a clarification. In any case, they had to save their lives first. The other party was a 5th-grade alchemist master, and they lost all of their spiritual power unknowingly. If they said that it had nothing to do with Yang Chun, they would not believe it even if they were beaten to death. But at this moment, they were meat on the chopping block, and the great elder of the Taishaman had to bow his head obediently. Is that so? Yang Chen's performance made everyone feel relieved. His willingness to ask meant that there was still a glimmer of hope, and he wouldn't kill all of them indiscriminately. At this moment, the great elder had already guessed how Hu Qinyi was captured alive. It was estimated that just like them today, he lost all of his spiritual power unknowingly and was at the mercy of others. We admit defeat, and we are willing to follow Grandmaster Yang to Chunyang Palace to be dealt with. The great elder was worthy of being the great elder, and he immediately admitted defeat. Presumably, Grandmaster Yang doesn't want to have more trouble. If you have any request, Grandmaster Yang can make it. As long as we Taishaman can meet it, there will be no objections. This old man is willing to swear by my heart. Even if everyone went to Chunyang Palace would probably send another note. The Taishaman would completely admit defeat this time, and they would first compensate Chunyang Palace for the loss and redeem their people. This account could be settled slowly in the future. If they insisted on being brave, all of them would be lost here, and the gains would not make up for the losses. And in the words of the elder, there was also a threat. If they died here, no matter what, the Taishaman would definitely be the first to suspect Chunyang Palace, which was inevitable in any case. Don't look at the Lord of Tantai, Elder Hua, and the Master of the Palace all felt that they could get away with it. But since the loss of Ming Guangrua's life source magic weapon last time, Chunyang Palace had already been the most suspicious object. If this happened again, it would be difficult not to doubt. One was a threat, the other was a temptation. Judging from the several transactions between Mao Qi and Yang Chun was a greedy person, but his appetite was getting bigger and bigger. As long as they could afford the price, Yang Chun would even sell the questioning inner heart pill, let alone let them go. The key point was that the great elder felt hopeful. That was, Yang Chun was only one person. Maybe it was a chance encounter, so he would strike first. Maybe Chunyang Palace did not know. As long as they reached a deal with Yang Chun, it was not an extravagant hope to be able to retreat. Well said. Yang Chun seemed to be fooled. 7th grade fire seed, at least 10 kinds of 10,000 years old spirit medicine. Each cannot be less than a gene, and 2 beautiful female disciples in the Jedon stage. How about it? Deal. The great elder did not hesitate to agree. At this moment, it must be necessary to save his life first. No matter what Yang Chen asked, he would agree. The old man swears by his heart, never break his promise. Cool. Yang Chun stepped forward a few steps and walked to the side of the great elder. He laughed and said, "Since the elder is cool, I will also be cool. First, I will unlock half of the restrictions for the elder. The elder can take people away first and send things to my Chunyang Palace in the future." As he said, Yang Chun reached out and grabbed the arm of the great elder. The elder only felt a pain in his skin, as if something had pierced his blood vessels. But then he immediately noticed that the spiritual power he had just lost was quickly making up for it. He was thinking about whether he should kill Yang Chun after recovering, or he should swear by his heart and fulfill the promise. Suddenly, the elder realized a serious problem and screamed, "No, it's a trap." Chapter 922. Although he felt that his spiritual power was recovering, at the same time, the Supreme Elder also discovered that the array that he maintained to suppress his strength actually had a hole in it, and it no longer served its original purpose. This also meant that he could no longer suppress his strength. As soon as his spiritual power recovered, or even before it was fully recovered, it would attract the heaven's retribution. The great elder knew very well how terrible the wind retribution was before ascension. If he was in his heyday, he believed that it would not be a problem to pass the wind retribution. However, it was different now. His spiritual power had not fully recovered. Since Yang Chun could use that unknown poison, how could he tolerate him to easily pass the wind retribution? The Great Elder could firmly believe that Yang Chun would definitely leave a residual poison that had not been eliminated so that he could not recover to his peak state, triggering the heaven's retribution. But he was in a weak state. This was simply killing him. Not only that, but the surrounding Yuanying stage and Jidan stage masters, in the case of the loss of spiritual power, were within the scope of the wind retribution. What would happen to them could almost be completely determined. Even if these Yuanying stage and Jidan stage masters were at their peak, there was only one possibility in the scope of the wind retribution. That was, they would be turned into ashes. Even if there was not a speck of ashes left, they would all disappear without a trace. This also meant that Yang Chun did not even have to kill them. He could use the power of the heaven's retribution to clean them up. Even if the Taishaman came to the door, everyone in the Chunyang Palace could swear by their heart demons that they had never touched them. However, it was obviously a little too late to realize this at this time. Yang Chun was indeed planning this. The Blue Jay Blood Phantom Vine only solved more than half of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill, and there was still a part of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill left in the Great Elder's body. It also took a process to restore spiritual power. It was impossible to say that as soon as the Blue Jade Blood Phantom Vine removed the poison here, it would recover immediately. Yang Chun had already won enough time to restore all his spiritual power by talking just now, but the Great Elder didn't have this opportunity. The hidden forces of a group of Taishamen watched Yang Chun casually take away the Chinquan bag of the Great Elder, and at the same time quickly took away the Chinquan bags of the 30 or 40 Yuanying stage masters around him, and then quickly escaped into the ground and disappeared. But the Great Elder just stood there, motionless. He had just recovered a little spiritual power, but it was not enough for him to control Yang Chun's actions. He could only helplessly watch Yang Chun take a pile of Chinquan bags and escape, without any power to stop him. After a few breaths, the Great Elder's spiritual power had recovered by 60%. At this moment, the omen of the black wind tribulation appeared in the sky, and countless tribulation clouds began to gather. If the heavenly tribulation was a peerless expert, he wouldn't even dare to move half a step for fear of triggering it prematurely. In his current state, it was impossible for him to survive the heavenly tribulation. Fortunately, his spiritual power was still constantly recovering. After 3 or 5 breaths, it had recovered to 70%. As long as he recovered a little more, the Great Elder would have complete assurance to survive the heavenly tribulation. As for the other Yuanying stage ancestors and Jidan stage masters, the Great Elder had no time to care about them. At this moment, besides worrying about his own life, he couldn't care about anything else. Just as he was waiting with joy, as long as there was another 10 breaths, his spiritual power would be able to recover to 80% so that he could successfully cross the tribulation. There was a sudden emptiness in his meridians. The spiritual power that had just been recovered quickly dissipated at a speed that was many times faster than the recovery. The medicinal power of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill in the Great Elder's body was just absorbed by the Blue Jade Blood Phantom Vine. However, the pulse-calming powder medicinal pill that filled the air did not dissipate, and it had been filling this valley. Under the command of Yang Chun, Abai left a trace of the juice that could neutralize the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill in the body of the Great Elder. But this juice was only enough for the Great Elder to consume for 500 breaths. Without the Blue Jade Blood Phantom Vine to detoxify him, the Great Elder soon discovered that he had been poisoned by the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill again. The spiritual power that had just been gathered disappeared quickly. The heavenly tribulation had been triggered, but his spiritual power had disappeared, and the face of the Great Elder couldn't help but show a bitter smile. The young man's calculation was simply flawless, leaving him no hope of escape at all. The sect had always wanted to fight against him. He really didn't know if this decision was right or wrong. The vision in the sky, of course, attracted the attention of everyone within hundreds of thousands of miles, including the attention of the Yuanying stage and Jidon stage masters in this valley. The Jidon stage masters were fine. They just thought that this was an ordinary heavenly tribulation, thunder tribulation, or eon fire tribulation. But those Yuanying stage elders knew that this was not a thunder tribulation, nor an eon fire tribulation, but a wind tribulation that could allow them to ascend. No matter what kind of heavenly tribulation it was, for them, it was no less than a disaster. If they had spiritual power, they might be able to avoid the thunder tribulation and eon fire tribulation. Unfortunately, none of the people present had any spiritual power. In the previous plan, in order to keep it top secret, they deliberately chose a valley with cliffs on all sides, which was inaccessible. With spiritual power, they could fly out at any time and anywhere. It was not a problem. But right now, everyone was trapped in this valley, and no one was able to leave. Flying on a sword became a luxury that everyone dreamed of, and everyone could only watch the tribulation clouds in the sky get lower and lower, and the threat of death was getting closer and closer. When watching the eon fire tribulation, with the cultivation base of the Palace Master and others in the Yuanying stage, they must fly hundreds of feet away. Now, it was the wind tribulation. It was estimated that within 1,000 feet, as long as there was a living thing, it would be the target of the wind tribulation. This valley was no more than 2,000 feet. Everyone was within the scope of the heavenly tribulation, and they were all in the center. Just before the heavenly tribulation fell, everyone had already understood this, and their faces were ashen and full of despair. Originally, they should be very proud to enjoy the glory of uprooting the Chunyang Palace. But now Chunyang Palace only sent a disciple in the Jidon stage, and all of them were sent to the abyss of eternal damnation. Yeah. The great elder raised his head and looked at the tribulation clouds that had formed in the sky, and let out a heavy sigh. Immediately, a bright light flashed in the sky, and the invisible wind directly blew in the valley. Starting from the great elder, everyone in the valley turned into flying ash silently, and then completely dissipated between heaven and earth. Just after the first round of the wind tribulation, there was no more vitality in the valley.